Welcome back. Nice to be back with you. Been away for a week. It feels like a year. How are you, Elvis?
Yes, Eben is nice and back. He's fresh and on the go.
Yeah,
yes,
no,
thank you. Welcome back. Welcome back.
Obviously had a great Heritage Day. We were talking about it yesterday, but now we're back in full swing with the entire team. Really happy to have you here.
Yeah, great to see the guys. But of course, we get straight down to business as we always do. And you know, tomorrow South Africa is facing strike action by Trade Union Federation Cosatu, who they say, Elvis, embarking on mass action against corruption and state capture.
Well, that's what it's all about. It's a national campaign. It's going to be a national march, and we want to find out from you. Do you support Cosatu's planned march against state capture and corruption? Let's take a look at that poll there, Kendall.
Well, there you have it. 243 votes already in, and 71% say yes, they do plan to support Cosatu's march tomorrow.
Very interesting. What are you guys tweeting us? Mahafa Noel says,
Where was Cosatu when the DA, the EFF, UDM, COPE and other civil organizations held national shutdowns against corruption, #Zuma and state capture, etc.?
yeah, very interesting one. This one from the King Solomon, who says to us, in Cosatu we trust. It's our last hope to liberate us from this corruption. Go Cosatu, go Kendall.
No, very interesting comments there.
Well, those are some of your comments, but also we focus on the long weekend that just passed. As we know, death toll again rising on our roads, and of course we've seen that they're trying to implement this 24-hour operation to make sure that that doesn't happen.
Visible policing on the roads, more visible policing. We hear this year after year, but the numbers are on an incremental upward curve.
Every time we come out of a public holiday, we're going to the public holiday, this is what we hear about: carnage on the roads. And we want to find out from you, what do you think? Do you think visible policing is enough to stop the carnage on the roads?
Let's have a look at our tweets. It's been a deadly weekend. The only way is for us to change our behavior on the roads, I think. I don't know how we're going to do it. What does Mahafa tells us here, Elvis?
He says sometimes visible enough, sometimes not enough. Something needs to be done. This matter should be treated as urgent.
We have another one from Unuke. Kristen says the road users, drivers and the policing traffickers got lots of jobs to do. They've got a lot of work. Smell the mouth of each driver to ascertain if he's drunk is what Unuke reckons needs to be.
Unuke, we've gone past the smelling bit. We've got a pipe that you blow into now to sort that out. Interesting take on it though.
Going deep, he says. Well, that's what we got for you, but we're also asking a sports question. Of course, we are bidding for the Rugby World Cup 2023.
Yes, we are.
There's a big day yesterday.
A massive day. High-powered delegation out in London, putting South Africa's best foot forward, really, saying that, you know, South Africa needs to be having this 2023 World Cup because we'll do a triple win for everyone.
It'll be a unifier, like we saw in '95, they tell us. But what do you think? Can this unify us?
Well, Alex Mutapo's got an opinion. He says only during the games.
This one coming from FX Trader says nothing will ever unify the nation other than having equal rights. Well, very interesting.
Very interesting. Anyhow, that's where you can interact with us. Keep on interacting with us. That's what Newsroom is all about. It's your platform to live in the news of the day. Right now, let's take a look at our top stories this morning.
Gauteng Education MEC Panyasala Surfi is visiting the Klipsveld West Secondary School south of Johannesburg. The school will be rocked by disruptions, with Teacher Union SABC withdrawing its teachers. Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba is expected to hold an urgent meeting with the board of the Public Investment Corporation today to discuss reports that the Treasury wants the PIC to bail out struggling state-owned enterprises. And the United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has warned that a rise in the rhetoric between North Korea and the United States increases the risk of miscalculations. Now, those are all your headlines, and before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
Gentlemen, massive day we had yesterday. In fact, now we get to talk about it, exactly what it is we're hoping to do to be able to get that 2023 Rugby World Cup. I'm looking forward to it. Let's see what comes out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. It should be interesting. I hope we get it. We certainly need a little
cheer.
Something.
Yeah, a little glue to bind us together again. It's a different country, yes, we know, but it will go a long way. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
And this we were able to do because of the cooperation that we've been able to engender in our country.
South Africa's high-power delegation presents the country's bid to host the Rugby World Cup 2023, pushing the notion that rugby will unite the country like it did in 1995.
We're not proud of the last game, but we've put that behind us now. You know, we've sort of buried the Albany game, and we're busy with the turnaround strategy.
With the All Blacks expected to beat Argentina and win the Rugby Championship over the weekend, the Springboks in Australia are hunkering down for a scrap over second place.
I have a lot of respect. And just, they beat one of the best teams playing football right now, is Napoli.
UEFA Champions League action returns tonight with Manchester City hosting tricky Shakhtar Donetsk and Borussia Dortmund preparing to battle Real Madrid. All this in more detail we'll have for you around about 10:40. Of course, I will be having a chat with Evan about our bid to host the 2023 World Cup around about 9:45, 9:50 or so. Elvis has got the news. Do stay with him.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this morning. The Gauteng Education MEC Panyazela Sufi is visiting the Klipspruit West Secondary School south of Johannesburg. The school has been rocked by disruptions, with teacher union Cosatu withdrawing its teachers. Yesterday, the school governing body was dissolved. Cosatu has reportedly sent the teachers back to Klipspruit. The Sufi says he's hopeful that learning and teaching will resume.
Officials getting their hands dirty to clean the mess at Klipspruit West Secondary School. Racial tensions flared up again last week after 4 black teachers were prevented from entering the school. Community members have accused the teachers of alleged misconduct. 11 other black teachers walked out in solidarity. Days later, SATU withdrew its members from 30 schools. But after meeting stakeholders, education officials are hopeful that classes can resume.
It's either we have a school or we don't have a school. You can't have it both.
Several SATU members staged a protest at the district office last week, disrupting teaching and learning. 30 other schools in Eldorado Park also shut their doors.
We have appealed to them to allow proper learning and teaching to take place so that we could engage on the issues that are pertinent to the interest of the teachers at the school.
The school has been dogged by racial tension since July, when community members refused to accept the appointment of a black principal. Meanwhile, the Human Rights Commission has now been roped in to investigate allegations of racism at the school. Manqaba Mchunu, SABC News, Klipspruit West in Soweto.
Finance Minister Mlusi Gigaba is expected to hold an urgent meeting with the board of the Public Investment Corporation, the PIC, today to discuss reports that the Treasury wants the PIC to bail out struggling state-owned enterprises or SOEs. Gigaba yesterday rejected all such reports as untrue, malicious and unconstructive. The reports claim that Treasury is putting pressure on the PIC, which manages more than 2 trillion rand in state pension funds, to bail out various SOEs, especially South African Airways. ANC presidential hopeful Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma says there is no clause in the ANC constitution that says certain positions should be preserved for deputies. Now, this follows reports made by ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe. He allegedly said that the ANC would be in a crisis if the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, didn't succeed President Jacob Zuma as party president. Dlamini Zuma was speaking at a cadres forum at Mpangeni in northern KwaZulu-Natal.
Mandashe seems to have touched a raw nerve. His recent Twitter comments on the leadership battle have led to him being berated by his party. Some leaders have accused him of being factional.
You cannot have unobhala we mass democratic movement. Even umbono one-sided where our members are ehlukahlukene. And then so that we understand the ANC. In leadership, the ANC must ensure ukuthi ivulelekile ukulalela yonke imbono.
Dr. Dlamini Zuma also weighed in on the issue.
The Constitution is guided very clearly.
The Constitution guides us very clearly, and we mustn't be confused.
It tells us which positions are available for election. Even if you want the incumbent, they still should be elected.
Dlamini Zuma urged members to refrain from personal attacks that could hurt relations in future. I am Mhlongo, SABC News in Pangeni.
Factionalism is at the heart of the tug of war within the ANC in the run-up to its December elective conference about whether its Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa should succeed the President Jacob Zuma. That's according to Professor Lesiba Tefu, who earlier spoke to the SABC.
In the minutes of 1949 in Morogoro, it stated that it is preferable, is prudent and desirable that the deputy should be the next in line. Granted, they have been practicing that over the years without any contradiction until somebody tried to fault the process. And the victim supposedly was Jacob Zuma. Men and women within the organization stood up and said, we shall uphold, maintain, retain, and honor the tradition of the ANC. And Jacob Zuma shall be the next in line. Everything was done. Some threatened to kill on his behalf. Some threatened to unleash the tsunami, all because they thought the ANC constitution was being violated, the tradition, custom, and practice was being violated. The next in line should be the deputy. Can it be Jacob Zuma? Can it be those who were around in 2007 in Polokwane? I heard Madam Nkosazana Zuma say, it is not policy, it's not tradition. How unfortunate. Perhaps all the more reason people think if she were to move into the State House, South Africa will be in for more of the same.
The Federation Union Cosatu will embark on a national mass action against corruption and state capture tomorrow. Now, Cosatu's provincial secretary in the Western Cape, Tony Ehrenreich, says that corruption at local, provincial and national government must come to an end. The mass action is also aimed at PRASA. Ehrenreich says that public transport is a disaster, especially for the poor. He says the city of Cape Town also has not prioritized its My City bus services where it's needed most.
If we don't address this corruption and state capture, if we don't address the problems around Cape President Zuma, then this country is going to get worse, the economy is going to get worse, and the unemployment levels are going to increase, and the levels of poverty in our community is going to get worse. We're already seeing a complete breakdown in law and order in many of our communities. If you look at Khayelitsha or Hanover Park, the gangsters are taking over. Drugs is an everyday occurrence, and the children's futures are being stolen away from them because we don't have decisive political leadership.
The United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has warned that the rise in the rhetoric between North Korea and the United States increases the risk of miscalculations. Now this, after North Korea said that US President Donald Trump's recent assertion that its leadership would not be around much longer amounted to a declaration of war. The two countries have traded increasingly hostile insults over recent weeks as North Korea has continued to carry out nuclear as well as missile tests. Now this morning, of course, we're focusing on traffic. Gauteng traffic officials, of course, has indicated that the death toll here has started to rise. Now, we're focusing on that question for you, and we want to know from you whether or not this 24-hour operations that they've implemented, not just here in Gauteng, but want to take it nationally, is it working, and is visible policing enough to stop the carnage on our roads? That's the question we're going to pose to you. We'll take a look at some of your comments in a short while. In fact, let's take a quick look at what you're telling us now. Malibongwe says, yes, but the question we should be asking is what drivers and all other road users doing to stop and deal with the carnage on our roads? Question there from Malibongwe, and one more here from Thomas Clifty that says no. And on that note, to take that further, let's go over to Eben to start the conversation.
Yeah, Elvis, very good morning to you. It seems like we're dealing with the usual carnage after a long weekend. Gauteng traffic officials, they say the death toll on the province's roads since the start of this long weekend has now risen to 22. That's in this province alone, and that brings the total well, I've got a report here that says to over 50 fatalities nationwide. The Department of Transport says it will show zero tolerance for those disobeying the rules of the road.
That amongst the accidents that we've had, speed has been an issue, and drinking and driving has been an issue as well. And so far, in Gauteng, we have recorded more than 60 drinking and driving arrests.
Drink and drive, and it seems this kind of behavior is not changing in South Africa, and it's causing this carnage on our roads over this long weekend that we've seen. Almost 50 people lost their lives in different accidents. These accidents were in different provinces. In one accident in Mpumalanga, authorities are attributed to human error. But why are there so many accidents, and what are the root causes? To talk about this a little bit, we're here joined by Gauteng Traffic Police's spokesperson, Busapi Ngumalo. A very good morning to you, ma'am, and thank you for being with us.
Good morning, Evan.
Just give us your overview around the weekend and the kinds of behavior that we continue to see on South Africa's roads.
Yeah, it is a serious challenge. It's a crisis. More people are continuing to die on our roads. We have recorded more than 22 people dying on our roads. You know, that it was a preliminary
that's in Gauteng alone.
That in Gauteng is. But contributory factors, we're still having people that are drinking and driving. We have arrested more than 122, including yesterday feedback that we have arrested more than 122 people for drinking and driving. Speeding contributes a lot. More than 42 people were arrested only this weekend, you know, this long weekend, for drinking, for exceeding the speed limit and, you know, driving recklessly on our roads. And the highest was 288 kilometers per hour. A person driving at that speed. 288 kilometers per hour on the R21. So it shows that people are not behaving on our roads. They're not abiding by the rules of the road. Yes, it's driver behavior, because even if we can have so many officers on our roads, but people need to behave, because you cannot only behave when you see traffic officers. What if traffic officers are not there, you know, at that stretch of the road? So it means more people are going to die. And the people that die most are the innocent people. People that are drinking and driving, they cause these accidents, and fortunately for them, they don't die. Innocent people, they lost their lives.
The unfortunate thing that we see developing in South Africa is that we have a lot of campaigns. Yes. We have a lot of road safety campaigns, yes. and these campaigns are in every province and at great cost to government. But it seems that with the numbers are saying that the behavior is getting worse and more people are dying. Surely we must think about doing something different then.
Unfortunately, we cannot stop, the campaigns. The road safety campaign will continue, because we've got road safety practitioners that are there trying to educate our people, educating them on daily basis, you know, and telling them about the act, more especially the pedestrians. On the 22, we've got 7 passengers who have died, drivers 7, 1 motorcyclist, and also 7 pedestrians. So also pedestrians, they're not supposed to be on freeway, but if we stop the campaigns of road safety, informing people, educating people about the roads, you know, that they are not supposed to be found on our freeway, unfortunately, more people are going to die. But we won't stop. We're still going to continue. At least if one person listens, or if we manage to save one life, you know, I think for us it's a benefit. But driver behavior, people must behave on our roads. We can do everything. We can do, you know, all the campaigns. We can arrest people, everyone. We can do so much, you know, provincially, you know, metros. We can do much, but people need to change their behavior.
You talk about that, which leads to education, but it seems as if South Africans don't know how to use the roads. Is that fair?
It's not fair to us as you know, law enforcement agencies, because we do our best. We are there, you know, trying to make sure that we are visible. Our deploy our officers, more especially on our hotspots, to make sure that they make our province a safe place to be, but our drivers don't behave. It's not fair for us, because at the end of the day, when people are dying, they're blaming the government, they're blaming us as law enforcement agencies that we're not doing our job. No matter how hard we try, we also need our motorists, our road users to come on board. They need to practice road safety on our roads, and they must know that road safety starts with you. It's an individual, decision. You need to take that decision decision to say, as from today, I'm going buckle up. I'm going to take charge of my life.
When I leave work here and I drive home, people just do on the road what they want. And I'm talking about pedestrians. They cross where they want, they walk across where they want, they jump out of vehicles wherever they want, vehicles stop wherever they want.
Yes.
Is it not our duty as the police to enforce the rules of the road and get people to understand that these little things are not acceptable, because it's the little things that lead us down the road of not respecting the big things?
That is why we are having road safety practitioners that goes on our roads to educate our pedestrians. Before we enforce the law, we make sure that we educate them, telling them they are not, giving all the tips, the safety tips. But unfortunately, I'll repeat this one. It's a person behavior. It's a road user. You need to be responsible first and take charge of your life, because road safety is everyone's responsibility. We're arresting them. We've arrested more than, I think we've arrested more than 78 pedestrians on our road, only this long weekend. So people are not behaving on our roads, and we educate them. But the fact of the matter is, we definitely going to arrest them. We won't hesitate, because we want to save people's lives.
What about corruption? Are you happy that you've got a handle on corruption within the ranks of your own members, and does that not lead to a lack of respect for law enforcement if people feel that they can pay a small inyana bribe?
Yeah, it takes two to tango. There's a corruptee and a corruptor. We always arrest them, But we are happy because the MEC, I think there was a statement 3 weeks ago that the MEC welcomed, There were more than 15 or 17 people that were suspended because of corruption of the ones of our own. So we also arrest them. They also are being arrested, suspended, and at the end they are dismissed. But we just want to say to the road users, they must stop giving our officials money.
Yeah.
They are getting paid on the 15th or 25th or month end, so they must stop giving them money.
Yeah,
they must do their job, they must buckle up, they must make sure that their vehicles are roadworthy, and stop giving traffic officers money, because it's corruption. They are corrupting our officials on a daily basis.
The way forward, what do you want to see, not just out on the roads, but even in the inner cities, and the behavior of pedestrians, the behavior of people who use the roads? What would you like to see as an ideal?
People must abide by the rules of the road. They must know, they must take charge. They must know that road safety starts with an individual. They must not behave because they see us wearing a uniform, brown uniform or blue uniform. They must behave. And vehicles should be roadworthy. We're pleading with everyone that they must carry their documentations, valid documentations, and also the vehicles should be roadworthy. That would stop our accident. People must not drink and drive. If you know that you're going to enjoy responsibly. Get someone that is going to drive with you, sober person. Stop speeding. If you are late, make sure that you don't speed. Make sure that you arrive early, and so that you can arrive alive to your destination. Because our officers are out there, we're definitely going to arrest people who are not going to abide by the rules of the road. And road safety is an individual. It's everyone's responsibility. You need to take care of your life.
People don't care about their lives anymore, it seems. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
This is the spokesperson for Gauteng Traffic Police, Busapi Ngumalo, saying that, yeah, we all have a responsibility to deal with this problem. It's an escalating problem, and we are not getting any better with regards to how do we use the roads. Sometimes I think we just don't know how to use the roads, and we don't care. But visible policing, of course, is the one thing that's been put forward as how do we overcome this challenge? And we ask you, do you think visible policing is enough to stop the carnage that we see out on our roads week after week? Some will call it long weekend after long weekend. Let's take a look at some of your views with regards to this question. This one from Sonwabile, who says to us, Newsroom, we need sober ministers who understand the rules of the road. People should also be responsible. Jamila van der Scape says, the problem is that hijacking and tragic road accidents are sometimes caused due to corrupt police officers. Visible policing, maybe not. Well, we just had the answer. It's a two-way street. We, as the citizens, should make sure that we do not pay bribes. Well, those are some of your views. Of course, we're also running a poll. Yeah, tomorrow there's mass marches planned around the country by Cosatu. So we want to see what you think of this. Do you support Cosatu's planned march? And these marches are set to be against state capture and corruption. They say this really hurts the poor. Now, we've got more than 300 votes in there already, and 72% are saying, yes, we support these planned national strike action against state capture and corruption. Almost 3/4 of you, our viewers, are saying exactly that. Rangwane Marumo tweets us, says, Cosatu, no, a little too late coming from them. Wow, tough crowd. Cosatu Today tweets us, Cosatu welcomes the yes vote by members of the public on the coming Cosatu strike scheduled for tomorrow. Yes, thank you for watching Cosatu. Here at Newsroom, we try and do our bit to keep the nation informed. Kevin van Zyl tells us, Cosatu depends on if they are against CAJ or with it in the fight for corruption. Is the Joburg March part of a deception? Please clarify, asked Kevin van Zyl. Yeah, marches in all over the country, as you can see. Let's now take a look at our picture of the day. This one from Trevor Kramer. Now it talks to the World Cup bid. Yep, the World Cup full screen there, and it kind of lists all the reasons why we should win this bid. We have the stadia, we have the infrastructure, nation of sportsmen, fans, perfect conditions, weather, experience of global events, high quality for lower cost, government backs the bid, and of course the fans, the players and officials, they just love coming to South Africa. All of the reasons in our pick of the day as to why South Africa should host the 2023 Rugby World Cup. Personally, I just think we need a little pick-me-up. We've become a little bit in our own heads as a nation. And when you're in your own head, you get in your own way a little bit. Let's take a look at our comment of the day. This one comes from Shlubian Boya, who says, a dynamism in culture is enriched and valued through multicultural and cross-cultural experiences. We are who we are as a result of daily experiences with people from different cultural backgrounds. Think about that. Yes, we are all different, but we are all the same. We are everything and we are nothing. Let's take a look at what's happening in the courts. The High Court in Pretoria is expected to hand down judgment in a marathon trial involving a former SA Revenue Service manager, Mandisa Mokoena, and 9 others. That kicks off shortly this morning. Now, they are charged with 58 counts of fraud, money laundering, as well as corruption. Now, Mokoena allegedly colluded with service providers and used her position to influence the awarding of tenders to the tune of 11 million rand at SARS. Among the accused are 3 former UNISA professors who allegedly gained financially from corrupt research and staff training tenders at SARS. Then, in Port Elizabeth, the murder trial of businessman Christopher Panayotu resumes in the Port Elizabeth High Court today. This is the 4th part of the hearing after the abduction and murder of his wife Jade in April of 2015. It's alleged that Panayotu masterminded the murder by hiring hitmen to kill her. The case is on the court roll for the rest of the week. We'll keep you updated. About 19 people are expected to appear in the Strand Magistrates Court outside of Cape Town today on charges relating to violent service delivery protests on the N2 there. Now, the accused face charges ranging from assault to public violence, even malicious damage to property. These residents of Luandle near the Strand went on the rampage yesterday, setting alight tires and stoning police vehicles to demand electricity. 3 police officers were injured during the protest. The situation is currently calm on the N2, and police say they are monitoring the situation there, but we will keep you updated if matters escalate there. Of course, tomorrow, well, we'll be looking at the Cosatu nationwide strike against state capture, corruption and job losses, they say. We'll try and get in all the stakeholders to talk about it. What is this all about? Be interesting. That's tomorrow. Right now, let's take a break.
An exciting opportunity and an absolute must for those with the spirit of adventure is a Kruger Park night game drive.
The railway station itself is already a sight to behold and offers gracious colonial-style buildings and serves as the departure and arrival point for all train journeys.
I wanted to dress with my best color. Being awarded to do the Serpentine Pavilion is the highest commission in my career. And I wanted just to come and show me with my best clothes, and that is blue.
Catch Trends Travel every Sunday from 12 to 1 for all the global travel and leisure trends.
Now we continue with our theme today, looking at road safety. Now 11 people were injured when a minibus taxi crashed into a car and rolled on the M1 near the Athol Oaklands turnoff here in Johannesburg on Sunday. That's 11 people. And in another separate incident, Vosburg in the Northern Cape, the police there are investigating a case of culpable homicide after 6 men died when the minibus that they were traveling in left the road and overturned on the R384 between Vosburg and Carnarvon late on Friday afternoon. Now, traffic authorities have appealed to road users to exercise caution and drive carefully. We're now joined in studio by Santaco spokesperson Thabiso Mololekwa. Mr. Mololekwa, very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning and thank you.
First and foremostly, what is your reaction as Santaco to the increase in accidents, especially with minibus taxis on our roads?
Well, there is a misperception that each and every taxi that is involved in an accident is actually a taxi. We have discovered that most of these are not necessarily taxis. They are not aligned to any taxi association. These are privately owned vehicles that are trying to do what taxis do. And in an event of an accident, you find that they are labeled as taxis. We had an incident in Mpumalanga where we sent a team to go and investigate, and we realized that these guys were not taxi operators. Another one in KZN, if you remember, a horrific one that happened lately in KZN. It was also not a taxi, and this was even confirmed by the community within which it happened. So it is quite concerning that every taxi that is out there involved in an accident is labeled as a taxi. But what we do on our side, before we even make an announcement or any pronouncement, we would send a team within the locality to go and determine whether this guy was a taxi owner or not.
So have you sent a team already to the various incidents that I've mentioned earlier?
Correct.
And so far you haven't got any feedback as yet?
Not yet, yeah.
But what plans are in place to improve the state of taxis in South Africa, as taxis still remain very popular, a popular mode of transport for our people in this country?
True. And this was even further confirmed by Stats SA. There is a program we call the Hlokomela Road Safety Campaign that is aligned to activities of the National Department of Transport. And this is our expression of commitment as Santaco to contribute towards road safety. We also try to do a throughout the year campaign where we visit taxi ranks, where we visit taxi associations, where we engage with drivers, engage with commuters from time to time, as part and parcel of trying to conscientize all stakeholders about road safety awareness. In fact, in some instances, there are drastic measures that have been taken to ensure that drivers comply. We even made an announcement, I think last year, December, where we said taxis found to be taxis, and the error on the driver. There's an error on the driver where a taxi was involved in an accident that led to loss of lives. We would not be afraid to become friends of the court and call for the courts to take harsher punishments on drivers that have been reckless. And this is the message that we are sending to all drivers. In fact, we even went on further to say, for drivers who are not compliant with the rules of the road and the owners of those taxis who happen to be employers, happen to have been aware of that, we will similarly take such measures against them in terms of our own association rules.
Now, unroadworthy vehicles are normally a problem. I mean, when we see vehicles being stopped, especially minibus taxis, we see how unroadworthy they are. When I drive on the roads, I can see them as well. They drive almost like a crab on the one side. And the question then is, it's not your point of call as you're not a traffic authority, but what do you do as an organization to ensure that owners and drivers adhere to the rules of road and ensure that their vehicles are roadworthy?
The responsibility of, aggressively dealing with this lies mainly with our subsidiary structures, particularly at local level. And this has been, I must say, a challenge for us to ensure that they comply with this situation. But what we continue to do is to continuously engage and assess and look at, what progress is made. There are associations that have taken this, responsibility. We've got some in Tshwane where they have employed what we call taxi patrollers. Mm-hmm. They would then stand at strategic areas to, sort of inspect taxis, check if, the vehicle is roadworthy, the tires are not worn out, the seats are correct, are well knitted, and there's no overloading. We've got a situation in Northwest in an area called Moruleng, where we have also dispatched patrollers there. There was a tendency of drivers overloading learners in the morning because there are no traffic officers. Mm-hmm. At some stage drivers used to intimidate learners who refused to get onto taxis that are overloaded. We've got already 2 drivers who've been dismissed as a result of that. And then the association has written letters to the schools to help them to help them with, dealing with issues of overloading and report taxis that are involved in such.
Mm-hmm. As a commuter and passenger, what measures can I take if I'm in a taxi to make sure that the taxi is safe? And if it's not safe, what access do I have in order to complain?
We have also noted that, commuters are afraid to speak to us, particularly to associations, because there is this perception that these guys are being protected and so on, and they easily get away with murder. And this is why we have said to them, if you can't talk to them, talk to us at national level. We will talk to them on your behalf to ensure that you can be able to come back again and ride on the taxi, under the belief that, whenever you register concerns, they will be resolved. We have various platforms of communication. You can engage us telephonically, through the office line. You can go on Twitter. You can go on Instagram. So all those platforms are there. You can go on our website, leave messages that can be dealt with, and we do attend to issues that are raised with us at national level.
That sounds fantastic. So they would reach you at Santako, I would imagine,
yes,
on Twitter and the website as well.
Yes.
Now, the latest regarding the taxi strike in Cape Town, has that been resolved already?
Well, all parties involved have agreed to, engage constructively and find an amicable solution. But what we did condemn as Santako was, taxi strike regarding internal issues affecting other modes of transport where buses were torched and so on. And this is the responsibility we have left squarely on the provincial leadership. And we say, despite the policy differences that they may have around the governance of the taxi industry in the Western Cape, they should always find a way in which they could resolve this. This is an election year for the taxi industry countrywide. Every 4 years we go for elections, and in the main that has been the problem in the Western Cape, and we are saying the only way to register your view during such seasons is the power of an X, and we are saying they are going for elections, so let them go and register that through a conference where they'd be able to outvote the leadership, and if the leadership is re-elected, it simply means the people have spoken.
Briefly, in 10 seconds, your message to commuters as well as drivers out there.
We say to commuters, they can continue to engage with us. We say We also regret the ill treatment that they may find, but working together with us as Santaco at National, we'd be able to resolve their problems. So we are open 24/7. They can go on our website and find our contact information and use it fruitfully.
I thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure. Thanks.
That was Thabiso Molelekwa. He is the spokesperson for Santaco here in studio. You heard the message, and of course that's why we focus on that question. We want to find out from you. 24-hour operations by the authorities, will that work? Will it perhaps make you safe on the road? Let's take a look at what you're telling us. But in fact, let's take a look at what's happening on our Facebook. It's time to take a look at the social media pages. Now, ANC Disciplinary Committee Chairperson Derek Hanekom says that he can't initiate investigations into party members implicated in the leaked Gupta emails. You see that on your screen right there. Then we move further up in Kenya. Opposition coalition National Super Alliance NASA will start demonstrations early today to demand the removal of the Electoral Commission in that country as we move up of the officials there. And finally, in Zimbabwe, the President Robert Mugabe has attacked Donald Trump again over the escalating tensions with North Korea, saying that the US president has a mental illness and he speaks before he thinks. Now, you can find all of those and more on our Facebook page and the SABC News website. Taking a look now at the newspapers from around the globe. And we start off in New York. The Wall Street Journal reports that the German Chancellor Angela Merkel started laying the groundwork for an unprecedented three-way governing coalition, but faces headwinds from conservative allies reeling from losses to an upstart nationalist party. Moving to Australia, the Australian says that Australians are exposed to gas shortages so great that they could halt power to 100 regional cities over the course of a year. That's according to a grim new warning that gives Malcolm Turnbull clear advice to impose drastic controls to prevent the crisis. And finally, in Israel, the Jerusalem Post reports that one might think that as a people struggling for statehood and demanding recognition of their own rights to self-determination, that Palestinians would have backed the Kurds as they held their historic referendum on statehood Monday. Those are some of your newspapers from around the globe, but we'll take a short break. After the break, we continue our discussion on road safety. You want to stay tuned.
It is 5 p.m. Central African Time, broadcasting live from Johannesburg. This is PM News. Mugabe is wanted in South Africa on a charge of assault with intent to do grievous bodily harm. Mugabe allegedly assaulted local model Gabriela Engels with an extension cord.
If the minister has granted the First Lady diplomatic immunity, then it then means that she will not be prosecuted.
There will now be 16 countries that form part of SADC. The Comoros was added as a member state during this summit. New Zealand rugby great Sir Colin Meads has passed away at the age of 81 following the battle with the pancreatic cancer. In 1999, Meads was named New Zealand's greatest rugby player of the 20th century. This year, a bronze statue of Meads was unveiled in his hometown of Te Kuti.
Stay tuned to PM News for all your news updates every Saturday and Sunday from 1500 hours.
Welcome back. It's been another deadly, deadly weekend. And the Ministry of Transport, well, they said this weekend past, they ordered a 24-hour operation to try and reduce road fatalities here in South Africa. Now, the campaign will be enforced, they say, in all 9 provinces. The announcement follows a string of accidents over the long weekend. Most crashes being blamed on human behavior, and this 24-hour operation was then set up to increase police visibility and ensure greater impact. Well, we are now joined by the Group Marketing Manager from Master Drive, Eugene Herbert. Very good morning to you, Eugene. Thanks for being with us.
Morning, Evan.
It was a bloody weekend, but long weekends always are, it seems, in South Africa. We drive very poorly. Do you think visible policing is enough for us to deal with the carnage that we are seeing?
Clearly, visible policing on its own is not sufficient. However, it does have positive benefits. I think when you look at stuff that's been done abroad, if there are policemen present, traffic officials, it does tend to encourage better behaviour with motorists. And in fact, they've gone to the point where putting cardboard cutouts, and motorists slow down if they think there's a policeman over there. So there is that, but our motorists, being who they are, tend to catch on very quickly, and therefore they revert to normal behaviour.
You talk about our motorists being who they are. Who are they?
Well, I think in order to put it into context, we need to see what the typical driver is. And I don't know that you can actually typify one. But to have a vehicle and to have a driver's license is a passport to freedom. It's an opportunity to get a job. Now, historically, and in fact, right at this point in time, we're very conscious of the fact that many driver's licenses have been obtained fraudulently. So with little skill and no expertise, they put onto the roads in a weapon which effectively entitles them to run amok. And without adequate preparation, training and education, they become a danger to you and I on the road.
Yeah, and we see that, and the pictures, of course, on screen don't lie. But I spoke to the traffic police officials a little bit earlier, and I want to get this question in very early, because I was a little bit perturbed with what I heard. When we talk about, you know, the relationship between officialdom and the road users, and the person who spoke on behalf of the management agency said that people should not corrupt traffic officials on the road. How do you view that kind of statement?
I was sitting in the back watching that, and literally my jaw dropped. And I agree that they should not be doing or cooperating with corrupt officials. But the officials in the first instance are corrupt. They've grown accustomed to getting additional money, so-called lunch money, and therefore they become very brave and brazen about it. And whilst no motorist should do that, one can understand the predicament on occasion that they're caught in, where the officer's making it a choice between being locked up or some horrific fine and a mere monetary contribution.
The obvious problem that we have in South Africa is twofold. Yes, it's enforcement of the laws, but it's also adhering to the rules of the road. We don't even know how to walk on the roads as pedestrians. How do we fix the 360 view?
The three pillars of road safety are basically engineering, good quality roads, there's education and enforcement. And if one looks at education, notwithstanding the fact that the various authorities have road safety practitioners out there, how effective is the education? Just because I give you a book doesn't mean you can read it. So let's teach the people to read and understand what they're engaging in, and then in all likelihood, they will probably respond better.
You talk about the changing of the attitude and how bad the attitude is that we have on the road, and education and all these things, and behavior needs to change. How do we do that, though?
I think the studies that we've done, we've seen that, you know, you take the average person who aspires to get a license, typically amongst disadvantaged communities, may have driven in the back of a taxi, who are not the greatest examples of good behavior on the road. And as a result of it, that behavior becomes commonplace and acceptable. Therefore, when they get their license, they don't see the need to change. So where we find a very strong movement is at corporate level, where they drive this through to individuals, establish a culture of respect for law and authority and for order. You know, if leadership don't set the right example, I remember seeing a minister get into the back of a motor car and not buckle up. Now, that's what should be normal, but they're not doing that. Lead by example.
What about the demerit system that's being put forward as the miracle cure to all of our behavioral problems that we have on the roads?
The spirit of it should cure many of our problems that we have, but is it possibly Pandora's box that you're opening up to all sorts of other things which have unintended consequences? But last time on the station we discussed the fact that if people do not break the law, they have got nothing to fear from the implementation of the Auto Act.
You touched on a little bit earlier, you said that there are a lot of people, licensed drivers, who bought their licenses. Should we not take a view that it's time for all South Africa's drivers to be retested and to kind of hand in their license and go again? Is that a plausible thing? Is that a solution?
Many of the drivers on our roads today never took what is currently the K53 system.
And I'm inclined to believe, and I don't exclude anyone in this room necessarily, that if they went for that test, I question whether or not they'd passed.
Yes.
So let's accept that that may not be the solution or the utopian solution, but there are other solutions that can complement that by educating motorists with regard to what they should do and how they can do it, and engage in positive and constructive behavior on the road.
What about all these campaigns and all the money that we're seeing are being spent on campaigns, Arrive, Alive? There's a plethora of them and lots of money go into them. Do these campaigns work?
Well, if I can just refer to one, and I'm not against campaigns, but it was a Arrive Alive campaign, and they're up in the airs and the aeroplane towing this big banner. Now, it's encouraging road safety, but what is the first thing a motorist does? He looks up, looks at the aircraft in the air, and he possibly runs into a car in front. So the wisdom or the methodology behind the implementation of some of their campaigns are a little bit suspect.
The way forward, if you had to come up with a short, medium and long-term view very quickly.
Well, if we had access to greater funds, because currently what it costs the fiscus by way of crashes on the roads is 174 billion rand and a year. It's about 3.4% of GDP. If that was directed to constructive projects within an environment where people could be educated, starting off at the youngest levels, and then a graduation process where a person, before they get their license, which entitles them to drive freely, should be awarded a system where they can ensure that once on the road they're safe. It happens and it works very successfully in other parts of the world, and there's no reason why, if the political will is there and the desire and the intent by the motorist to comply, that we can't succeed.
Eugene, thank you very much for joining us today. Very interesting views. The Group Marketing Manager from Master Drive, Eugene Herbert, talking to us about, well, why are we behaving so badly on the roads? You certainly do. Don't forget the question that we're asking you, and of course you guys are tweeting us, is visible policing. Is it enough to stop the carnage on the roads? Now, Eugene tells us it should be just one of the pillars of a process that we should work on. Let's have a look at some of your tweets. This one from John Smith, who says to us, drivers in Bronkhorstspruit did not stop at stop streets this morning. 12 drivers failed to stop at one stop street. Please help. Yes, it's that behavior that we're talking about, John. We see what others do and we just follow. Desley Lefelo tells us, beer education is the key. Government must add a subject when you are getting a learner's license. My word. This one from Tabiso Heshe. He says, Newsroom, government can do so much to stop reckless driving. Drivers must also take responsibility of their safety on the road. Yes, it's all of us. It's easy to point fingers and say, oh, they should be doing it, but it's us. You should be starting. We should all make a contribution, but we don't have ears. Anyhow, South Africa has presented its bid to host the 2023 Rugby World Cup to World Rugby, along with Ireland and France. The Rugby Mad Nation will have to wait until the 15th of November to find out who gets to host the 10th Rugby World Cup. Will it be here in South Africa? Kendall is here. Kendall is confident that we're going to get it.
Well, not particularly. I think look, I think we're putting a really good bid, and by all accounts, even pundits in the UK ahead of our bid, who'd had a sneak peek at it, said our bid is magnificent. And it talks to how well planned this bid has been. Yuri Roo, Mark Alexander have actually worked really hard to put together the best foot forward. Really, having Cyril Ramaphosa there, having John Smith and Francois Pienaar there, really a master stroke. These are two World Cup winning coaches. Underpinning our hopes to have captains, I beg your pardon, captains, underpinning our hopes to bring the Rugby World Cup back to South Africa.
The one thing that stands out for me in this bid document is a guarantee, financial guarantee. Is that accurate?
Yes, it's accurate. It's 160 million pounds.
That's 3 billion rand almost.
Absolutely. It's well, not quite. It's just yes, about 3 billion rand that they've underpinned, that the government has guaranteed that they'll put forward, and it's irrevocable. Cyril Ramaphosa went a long way towards making sure that he spoke about guarantees and infrastructure a few times in the 50-minute presentation, making sure that the World Rugby Council is aware that the 160 million pounds that we're putting forward is irrevocable and is going to go to them should they give it to South Africa. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, a lot of money guarantee. How do we overcome the sort of apathy we have in South Africa? Because people, South Africans are a little bit... weather beaten at the moment when it comes to politics and these kind of things. And the kind of conversations I see on social media, people are saying things like, oh, we've got enough problems, we don't need this thing.
You know what, before we even get to that, Eben, let's just talk a little bit about the money itself. You know, right now we're talking about the PIC, the Minister of Finance, talking about state-owned enterprises seeking bailouts, and here we are going to the world stage and say, look, we promise you, we're going to bring you some 3 billion rands worth of guarantees. So yes, it's a bit of a tightrope that they're walking. However, it's the return on investment that South Africa will get that we're really looking forward to. And that hasn't been specified yet. However, we do know that the Rugby World Cup in England, the England Rugby Federation made some £50 million in returns after they'd put up the World Cup. So, you know what, all things said and done, it really depends on how well fans respond to buying tickets and coming to South Africa, should we get it.
That's what we ask you also. Will it bring unity? That's our sports question of the day. This 2023 Rugby World Cup, will it bring unity to South Africa? Do we need it? Who can forget what happened in 1995 Invictus? Go watch the movie if you don't know. Myself and Kendall will be back with you at the top of the hour.
Africans are increasingly using digital platforms for life, work and play.
Information is key for us. We live in an information age. We live in the digital age.
I'm mostly on WhatsApp because not all my friends have iPhones, so they don't have FaceTime.
On Network, we tell you about Africa's technology and social media landscape. And some here are using the internet to raise political concerns.
Some of the exposés on political issues come from what you call your diasporic online media.
Africans are also using technology to create. For African technology and social media news, join me, Phumelele Zondi, on Network every Sunday at 9 p.m.
Human development has been the cause of major destruction in nature. Ironically, it's this very development that could also be its saving grace. Such is the case of the paintbrush lily. Where they once thrived here in Stellenbosch, among others, it's estimated that less than 200 plants still exist in nature. This group of scientists has embarked on a mission to save the species.
Using science and technology, we can reverse the process of what's happened already and hopefully introduce more plants back into this environment and other environments where it occurred before. So, for example, there's a development around one of the schools nearby that we would like to introduce the plants into a wetland rehabilitation program. So ideally, we would like to save this population, get it to be self-sustaining.
Taking nature into the concrete jungle structures of the university, they are using existing basic techniques to develop a new method of plant multiplication, a process similar to cloning.
Because it's so endangered, we don't want to destroy any of them, so we're hoping we can just use the leaves. And then from each little piece of the leaf, we're hoping we can make at least 1 or maybe 2 little bulblets by treating it with the right hormones, the right conditions, and then from that we can take those plants and then divide those again and make more. So micropropagation has the potential to make millions of plants from just one small sample.
And the next generation of scientists are already on board.
I think a lot of people go into medicine. That's the normal route, but BSc has a lot to offer. So genetics has always been an interesting one for me, actually determining what's going on inside our bodies on a molecular level.
If successful, specimens will be sent to botanical gardens around the world for safekeeping. And saving even the smallest paintbrush lily could one day prove to be the saving grace of the great balance of all life on Earth. Mariska Botha, SABC News, Stellenbosch.
Welcome back. Very good morning to you once again. I'm with Kendall Machamat.
Very good morning to you. It's a big morning that we wake up to here on this 26th of September after Heritage Day, but a whole lot that we're focusing on today.
Yeah, lots of talking points. One of the big ones, of course, is tomorrow's marches planned around the country. Cosatu said they're going to bring national mass action and bring the nation to a standstill against corruption and state capture.
Well, yeah, they're actually like taking a stand now. And we want to find out from you, do you support Cosatu's planned march against state capture and corruption happening tomorrow?
Well, lots of votes in. 358 of you are voting and saying, well, 3/4 almost are saying, yes, we support this thing against state capture and corruption. It's such a wide concept, though. I don't quite know how to get my head around state capture and corruption, because it's not just one person or one group that there should be a little bit more.
I think over time, different pundits and different opinion makers have actually tried to crystallize it. And yes, you can find it, but having said that, it remains to be seen exactly what Cosatu is planning to march against tomorrow.
You're tweeting us, and Svisum Kos, it tells us, no, it's just a waste of money and resources, hence there's nothing new about it. They've tried before, says Sviso.
Sonwabile says, corruption is a poison to this country.
To every country, Sonwabile. It's all over. It's in business. It's everywhere. But we've made it only one sectoral problem in South Africa, and that's an issue I think we have to address. Our question of the day, of course, looks back at what was another deadly weekend on the roads, Kendall.
Yeah, another public holiday, a weekend, and comes back with a lot of people dying to and fro from wherever they'd been. And we want to find out from you, how do we deal with this? Do you think that visible policing is enough to stop the carnage on our roads?
Well, you guys are tweeting us. We've been told that earlier it should just be one element within it. And Tabisa says to us, government can do so much to stop reckless driving. Drivers must also take responsibility of their safety on the roads. Yes, we all need to contribute, no doubt.
Tabisa carries on and says, it's unfortunate that people continue being careless on the roads over long weekends and public holidays.
Yeah, take the lives of everyone else into your care when you are out there on the roads. Of course, we've got a sporting question we talked about a little bit earlier. Can hosting the 2023 Rugby World Cup unify the nation, Kendall?
Tell you what, this nation is in need of something that's going to bind us back together again. So many different issues that we're dealing with, and a lot of people are looking to 2023 to bring us all back under one umbrella. What are your thoughts on the matter?
Onuke tweets us, he says, oh yes, that is one of the attributes of sports, but it's better to build unity from now than to wait till then. Yes, government is always talking about social cohesion and working at unity, but it's all of our responsibility, Onuke, for sure.
Malibongo says, hosting Rugby World can only temporarily unify the nation. To unify the nation, we need more than just hosting the World Cup. I think both these two respondents are on the same page, pretty much.
Yeah, I think all of us understand. We all have collective responsibility. Anyhow, that's the tale of the tape, as it were. Let's take a look at your top stories right now. Gauteng Education MEC Panyaza Lesufi is visiting the Cliffstrait West Secondary School south of Johannesburg. The school has been rocked by disruptions, with teacher union SATU withdrawing its teachers. Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba is expected to hold an urgent meeting with the board of the Public Investment Corporation today to discuss reports that the Treasury wants the PIC to bail out struggling state-owned enterprises. And United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has warned that a rise in the rhetoric between North Korea and the United States increases the risk of miscalculation. Those are your top stories at this very hour. Let's go over to Kendall for the sports headlines.
Thank you very much for that, Eben. Looking forward to what we've got for you in the sports later on. This is what we have.
And this we were able to do because of the cooperation that we've been able to engender in our country.
South Africa's high-power delegation presents the country's bid to host the Rugby World Cup 2023, pushing the notion that rugby will unite the country like it did in 1995.
We're not proud of the last game, but we've put that behind us now. You know, we've sort of buried the Albany game, and we're busy with the turnaround strategy.
And with the All Blacks expected to beat Argentina and win the Rugby Championship over the weekend, the Springboks in Australia are hunkering down for a scrap over second place.
I have a lot of respect. And just they beat one of the best teams playing football right now, like Napoli.
UEFA Champions League action returns tonight with Manchester City hosting tricky Shakhtar Donetsk and Borussia Dortmund preparing to battle Real Madrid. All this in more detail as well as other stories we'll have for you at 10:40. Do stay with Eben as he's got the news.
Yeah, thank you, Kendall. Very good morning once again. Gauteng Education MEC Panyaza Lesufi is visiting the Klipspruit West Secondary School south of Johannesburg. The school has been rocked by disruption, with teacher union SATU withdrawing its teachers there. Yesterday, the school governing body was dissolved. SATU has reportedly sent the teachers back to Klipspruit. Lesufi says he's hopeful that learning and teaching will resume.
Officials getting their hands dirty to clean the mess at Klipspruit West Secondary School. Racial tensions flared up again last week after 4 black teachers were prevented from entering the school. Community members have accused the teachers of alleged misconduct. 11 other black teachers walked out in solidarity. Days later, SATU withdrew its members from 30 schools. But after meeting stakeholders, education officials are hopeful that classes can resume.
It's either we have a school or we don't have a school. You can't have it both.
Several SATU members staged a protest at the district office last week, disrupting teaching and learning. 30 other schools in Eldorado Park also shut their doors.
We have appealed to them to allow proper learning and teaching to take place so that we could engage on the issues that are pertinent to the interest of the teachers at the school.
The school has been dogged by racial tension since July, when community members refused to accept the appointment of a black principal. Meanwhile, the Human Rights Commission has now been roped in to investigate allegations of racism at the school. Manqoba Mchunu, SABC News, Klipspruit West in Soweto.
Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba is expected to hold an urgent meeting with the board of the Public Investment Corporation today to discuss reports that the Treasury wants the PIC to bail out struggling state-owned enterprises or SOEs. Gigaba yesterday rejected all such reports as untrue, malicious and unconstructive. The reports claim that Treasury is putting pressure on the PIC, which manages more than 2 trillion rand in state pension funds, to bail out various SOEs, especially South African Airways. ANC presidential hopeful Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma says there is no clause in the constitution of the ANC that says certain positions should be preserved for deputies. This follows reports made by ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe. He allegedly said that the ANC would be in crisis if Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa didn't succeed President Jacob Zuma as party president. Dlamini Zuma was speaking at a cadres forum in Empangeni in northern KwaZulu-Natal.
Mandela seems to have touched a raw nerve. His recent Twitter comments on the leadership battle have led to him being berated by his party. Some leaders have accused him of being factional.
You cannot have unobhala mass democratic movement. Even umbono one-sided where our members are ehlukahlukene. And then so that we understand the ANC. In leadership, the ANC must ensure ukuthi ivulelekile ukulalela yonke imbono.
Dr. Dlamini Zuma also weighed in on the issue.
The Constitution guides us very clearly, and we mustn't be confused. It tells us which positions are available for election. Even if you want the incumbent, they still should be elected.
Dlamini Zuma urged members to refrain from personal attacks that could hurt relations in future. I am Mhlongo, SABC News in Pangeni.
Political analyst Professor Lesiba Tefo says factionalism is at the heart of the tug-of-war within the ANC in the run-up to its elective conference about whether its Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa should succeed President Jacob Zuma.
Cabinet of 1949 in Morogoro, it stated that it is preferable, is prudent and desirable that the deputy should be the next in line. Granted, they have been practicing that over the years without any contradiction until somebody tried to fault the process. And the victim supposedly was Jacob Zuma. Men and women within the organization stood up and said, we shall uphold, maintain, retain, and honor the tradition of the ANC. And Jacob Zuma shall be the next in line. Everything was done. Some threatened to kill on his behalf. Some threatened to unleash the tsunami, all because they thought the ANC constitution was being violated, the tradition, custom, and practice was being violated. The next in line should be the deputy. Can it be Jacob Zuma? Can it be those who were around in 2007 in Polokwane? I heard Madam Nkosazana Zuma say, it is not policy, it's not tradition. How unfortunate. Perhaps all the more reason people think if you were to move into the State House, South Africa will be in for more of the same.
The Federation Union Cosatu will embark on a national mass action against corruption and state capture tomorrow. Cosatu's provincial secretary in the Western Cape, Tony Ehrenreich, says corruption at local, provincial and national government level must come to an end. The mass action is also aimed at PRASA. Ehrenreich says public transport is a disaster, especially for the poor. He says the city of Cape Town also has not prioritized its My City bus services where it is needed most.
Corruption and state capture. If we don't address the problems around Cape President Zuma, then this country is going to get worse, the economy is going to get worse, and the unemployment levels are going to increase, and the levels of poverty in our community is going to get worse. We're already seeing a complete breakdown in law and order in many of our communities. If you look at Khayelitsha or Hanover Park, the gangsters are taking over. Drugs is an everyday occurrence, and the children's futures are being stolen away from them because we don't have decisive political leadership.
Of course, there you see the poll that we are running and asking you, our viewers, do you support Cosatu's planned national strike against state capture and corruption? Right now, 378 votes have been cast, with 73% of you saying, yes, we do support this national strike against state capture and corruption. But what are you guys writing us? The Big M, Michael Sitoli, tells us, Newsroom, Cosatu needs to be put under the microscope because they hide wherever during the year, and whenever they're bored, they come out and make noise. Sonwabile says, corruption, I think, is a poison to this country. Spiso Nkosi says, no, it's just a waste of money and resources. Hence, there's nothing new about it. They've tried before. Well, we move on. Winnie Mandela turns 81 years young today. Last year, she celebrated her birthday at the luxurious Mount Nelson Hotel in Cape Town. In May, she was admitted to hospital Mill Park here in Johannesburg for a routine checkup, and in 2015 she underwent back surgery. Meanwhile, in the Free State, the house to which Madikizela Mandela was banished to by the apartheid government in Brantfort remains entangled in controversy and uncertainty. In July 2012, the Free State government set aside 3 million rand for renovation of the house. Another 2 million rand tender reportedly went out in early 2013. Thus far, the house remains dilapidated. Madikizela Mandela was banished to the house number 802, with her daughter Zinzi from 1977 until 1986. The house was bombed twice while Madikizela Mandela was staying there. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has warned that the rise in the rhetoric between North Korea and the US increases the risk of miscalculation. This after North Korea said that US President Donald Trump's recent assertion that its leadership would not be around much longer amounted to a declaration of war. The two countries have traded increasingly hostile insults over recent weeks as North Korea has continued to carry out nuclear and missile tests. Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom here on SABC News. It's nice to be back with you. Of course, we've just celebrated Heritage Day. And far too often, Africans have many of their stories told for them by others. But the team at Heritage Publishers, yes, they are changing all of that. They recently launched a series of books that explores events that shaped our country. There you see them right on screen now. Now, the first title in the series tells the story of the Battle of Mhlathuze River, which has its bicentennial anniversary next year, 2018. Approximately 200 years ago now, this battle was the catalyst for the relocation of the Amandwandwe to northern Swaziland and eastern Mpumalanga. It also provided the impetus for the founding of the Amashangan nation, as well as Dingoni under Zwangendaba. In its aftermath, Shaka consolidated his authority over many of the Abanguni clans in the present day. Now, we are joined in studio by Terence Ball, who is the publisher at Heritage Publishers. A very good morning to you, Terence. Certainly a mouthful and a whole range of books that you have here. Nice to have you with us. Just talk us through this idea of heritage.
Well, I've had the great privilege of traveling through Southern Africa, rural Southern Africa, for the last 30, 40 years, Botswana, Lesotho, Swaziland, and South Africa. And in about 2013, I met with 3 friends of mine in rural Vuwani, a little village in the northeastern part of Limpopo, which is in the news for all the wrong reasons at the moment.
Yeah, that's true.
2 of them were Chitsonga speakers, one of Amashangan heritage, one of Vatsonga, and a third of Chivenda speaker, Konanani Mativa. And we were talking about the name that Vuwani used to have 100 years ago, which was Lokati van Taban. For those who were interested, it was a North Sotho mispronunciation of Dawana, Makado's brother. But I asked them who Taban was, and they couldn't answer, and I teased them by saying, it surprises me that people who are so respectful of the ancestors know so little about what those ancestors did. And Konanani said to me, you know, Terence, you are right to scold us, but you know something of all of our languages, you know a lot of the history of our people, you know publishing, and you understand what is happening in our schools. Why don't you do something about it? So that's how the series started.
Now, the first edition is the Battle of Umhlatuze River. And it's, of course, a story that's part of our narrative and it's been told time and time again. What's different in this version?
I think what is very different in this version is that, as you'll see, each of the books is quite thin. And that's done deliberately in order not to appear daunting to our young readers of English who have another language as their mother tongue. They're well illustrated, so 10,000 words. Each story is restricted to 10,000 words, 48 pages. And most of the stories are told through the mechanism of the traditional storyteller, which is a craft that has really died, very sadly. I think most people who tell stories in the old traditional way now are actors playing that role. And we started with Umhlatuze River because, as you said in the introduction, it founded the Amashangana nation. It was a battle fought between Zwide Kalanga and Kosigakulu of the Amandwandwe, Shoshangan Kanumalo and Zwangindaba Kajele. And Mzlikazi Kamashobani at that time was fighting on the side of Shaka against his grandfather. Zwide Kalanga was Mzlikazi's grandfather. And then came the split. Following the battle, in the aftermath of the battle, obviously there was a fallout between Mzlikazi and Shaka, which meant that Mzlikazi had to flee from KwaZulu-Natal, stopping in Ermelo, Middelburg, Pretoria, what we now know as Pretoria, long before it was that.
It's interesting because my son is in grade 10 and he's going through this sort of history right now, and I'm kind of sharing that journey with him a little bit. But of course, there are many calls in South Africa now for the decolonization of education and bringing these stories and accurately retelling these stories to our young people. How do you view that, and do you support that idea?
I absolutely support that idea. There's so much talk about social cohesion. Well, how better to socially cohese our society, if you like, than to give them some words in all of our indigenous languages and give them some knowledge of their own ancestry, their own ancestors, and those of other South Africans. You know, if I go to Kalo Kofi Mvaba and I greet somebody in Chivenda, Demachironi and Do, I'll be asked if I've just come in from the Congo. Nobody there would recognize Chivenda as a South African language. And we have to deal with that issue. We need to know who Dubanyika was. We need to know who Makoma was, etc., etc.
Now, you've serialized this. Tell us the idea of releasing what's really the great works of South Africa in a series.
Well, you know, all of these stories, as different as they may seem on the surface, do have some linkages, and that's important. As you know, we started with the Umhlatuze River. I then decided that we should look at the story of the Amashangana. So we started with Shoshangan, who was at the battle. We cover his son Muzila and Muzila's son Gugunyane. We then looked at Mzlikazi Kamashobane, and I was about to publish those books, and I thought to myself, I may well be criticized for producing a history of the Abanguni rather than an attempt to begin to put together a fairly comprehensive list of titles covering all South Africans. And so I decided to include some histories of the Musutu, of the Bapedi, of the Vavenda, and so on. And of course the series will grow. We haven't covered all of South Africa's people, not by a long way.
That leads me to the next one. There's some real interesting, for instance, the creation story of the San Bushman, and of course we all know the story around Hottentots Hot and these sorts of things. These are these to follow? You're going to follow up and try and retell those stories in a sort of, call it, a way that young people can interact and understand?
Absolutely. I have a list of 80 titles currently, either people or events whose stories we would like to tell. And I'm deeply privileged to be working with the SAN Council and the SAN Institute to produce the first major bilingual dictionary in Ngcuki, Qung and Kwedam, English, in about 80 years. And certainly stories of the SAN must follow.
The importance of us telling our own stories. How do you view that importance?
I think it is critically important, especially when these stories are being lost. And if we talk to most people about the siege of Leboho, even the Bahananwa themselves, they would know about it, but possibly they wouldn't have as much knowledge as they should have. And it's a deeply interesting story. If we are going to try and bring the country together, as I say, I believe that we need to become a more multilingual society, and I also believe that we need to know something of our ancestors and those of other South Africans. So it is a mission for me.
Heritage Day is just finished and heritage publishers are here. Are we really in touch and interested in our heritage in South Africa and each other for that matter?
It's a difficult one to answer. I mean, superficially it would seem not, but the fact of the matter is I'm glad that there has been a very positive response to the series. It's also quite a sensitive issue. I think it's something that people would not want to own up to, i.e. I have no interest in my ancestors. Very unlikely that people would make that statement. So we have to explore that, and we have to strengthen their understanding of the past. And I'm convinced that with a greater understanding of the past, will come a greater respect for it. And I hope that people will visit places that are mentioned in these books on their holidays.
I think there's international benchmarks where we see that kind of thing has helped with healing processes, where you go and reflect and understand the past so you can collectively go forward. What's next for heritage publishers?
Well, as I mentioned, we have 80 titles, and if the series is successful, if it does take on, there will be no end to it, quite literally, because we have a rich history across all of our provinces. There are so many stories to tell, and interesting stories. So I hope, obviously, to be able to expand the series to become more representative of all South Africa's people. And I mean, I think I ought to say that I heard recently, and I'm very pleased about it, that the Library of Congress in the USA has purchased and catalogued the entire series. So for the first time, to my knowledge, a comprehensive series of the story of South Africa's ancestors is being made available to some degree to an international audience.
That's fantastic, incredible work that you've done, that you're doing, Terence. Terence Ball is the publisher at Heritage Publishers, and they are truly telling the story of South Africa, our true history. If you don't know where you're coming from, you will never know where you are going. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Very interesting. I enjoyed that. Go out and have a look at it. This 80 titles. You have to go and read these stories, and you have to introduce your children to these stories. We're going to take a short break. You're watching Newsroom here on SABC News.
With the stories of abuse from the other 8, but they haven't been ready to pursue any angles. They've offered their support, they've offered the comfort to the 8, and it's been an amazing journey.
It feels like your heart actually literally sunk in your shoes.
It wasn't a long encounter. I think at the time I froze.
the way the criminal justice system deals with sexual violence is problematic. And I don't know, unless there's a fundamental change in many things, the way prosecutors deal with the victim in the matter.
For all investigative insights, stay tuned to Special Assignment every Saturday at 17:30.
Now we continue with our theme today, looking at road safety. Now 11 people were injured when a minibus taxi crashed into a car and rolled on the M1 near the Athol Oaklands turnoff here in Johannesburg on Sunday. That's 11 people. And in another separate incident, Vosburg in the Northern Cape, the police there are investigating a case of culpable homicide after 6 men died when the minibus that they were traveling in left the road and overturned on the R384 between Vosburg and Carnarvon late on Friday afternoon. Now, traffic authorities have appealed to road users to exercise caution and drive carefully. We're now joined in studio by Santaco's spokesperson, Thabiso Molelekwa. Mr. Molelekwa, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning and thank you.
First and foremost, what is your reaction as Santaco to the increase in accidents, especially with minibus taxis on our roads?
Well, there is a misperception that each and every taxi that is involved in an accident is actually a taxi. We've discovered that most of these are not necessarily taxis. They are not aligned to any taxi association. These are privately owned vehicles that are trying to do what taxis do. And in an event of an accident, you find that they are labeled as taxis. We had an incident in Mpumalanga where we sent a team to go and investigate, and we realized that these guys were not taxi operators. Another one in KZN, if you remember, a horrific one that happened lately in KZN. It was also not a taxi, and this was even confirmed by the community within which it happened. So it is quite concerning that every taxi that is out there involved in an accident is labeled as a taxi. But what we do on our side, before we even make an announcement or any pronouncement, we would send a team within the locality to go and determine whether this guy was a taxi owner or not.
So have you sent a team already to the various incidents that I've mentioned earlier?
Correct.
And so far you haven't got any feedback as yet?
Not yet, yeah.
But what plans are in place to improve the state of taxis in South Africa, as taxis still remain very a popular mode of transport for our people in this country?
True, and this was even further confirmed by Stats SA. There is a program we call the Hlokomela Road Safety Campaign that is aligned to activities of the National Department of Transport. And this is our expression of commitment as Santaco to contribute towards road safety. We also try to do a throughout the year campaign where we visit taxi ranks, where we visit taxi associations, where we engage with drivers, engage with commuters from time to time, as part and parcel of trying to conscientize all stakeholders about road safety awareness. In fact, in some instances, there are drastic measures that have been taken to ensure that drivers comply. We even made an announcement, I think last year, December, where we said taxis found to be taxis, and the error on the driver. There's an error on the driver where a taxi was involved in an accident that led to loss of lives. We would not be afraid to become friends of the court and call for the courts to take harsher punishments on drivers that have been reckless. And this is the message that we are sending to all drivers. In fact, we even went on further to say, for drivers who are not compliant with the rules of the road and the owners of those taxis who happen to be employers, happen to have been aware of that, we will similarly take such measures against them in terms of our own association rules.
Now, unroadworthy vehicles are normally a problem. I mean, when we see vehicles being stopped, especially minibus taxis, we see how unroadworthy they are. When I drive on the roads, I can see them as well. They drive almost like a crab on the one side. And the question then is, it's not your point of call as you're not a traffic authority, but what do you do as an organization to ensure that owners and drivers adhere to the rules of the road and ensure that their vehicles are roadworthy?
The responsibility of, aggressively dealing with this lies mainly with our subsidiary structures, particularly at local level. And this has been, I must say, a challenge for us to ensure that they comply with this, situation. But what we continue to do is to continuously engage and assess and look at, what progress is made. There are associations that have taken this, responsibility. We've got some in Tshwane where they have employed what we call taxi patrollers. They would then stand at strategic areas to, sort of inspect taxis, check if, the vehicle is roadworthy, the tires are not worn out, the seats are correct, are well knitted, and there's no overloading. We've got a situation in Northwest in an area called Muruleng, where we have also dispatched patrollers there. There was a tendency of drivers overloading learners in the morning because there are no traffic officers, at some stage drivers used to intimidate learners who refused to get onto taxis that are overloaded. We've got already 2 drivers who've been dismissed as a result of that. And then the association has written letters to the schools to help them to help them with, dealing with issues of overloading and report taxis that are involved in such.
As a commuter and passenger, what measures can I take if I'm in a taxi to make sure that the taxi is safe? And if it's not safe, what access do I have in order to complain?
We have also noted that, commuters are afraid to speak to us, particularly to associations, because there is this perception that these guys are being protected and so on, and they easily get away with murder. And this is why we have said to them, if you can't talk to them, talk to us at national level. We will talk to them on your behalf to ensure that you can be able to come back again and ride on the taxi, under the belief that, whenever you register concerns, they will be resolved. We have various platforms of communication. You can engage us telephonically, through the office line. You can go on Twitter. You can go on Instagram. So all those platforms are there. You can go on our website, leave messages that can be dealt with, and we do attend to issues that are raised with us at national level.
That sounds fantastic. So they would reach you at Santako, I would imagine, yes, on Twitter and the website as well. Yes. Now, the latest regarding the taxi strike in Cape Town, has that been resolved already?
Well, all parties involved have agreed to, engage constructively and find an amicable solution. But what we did condemn as Santako was, taxi strike regarding internal issues affecting other modes of transport where buses were torched and so on. And this is the responsibility we have left squarely on the provincial leadership. And we say, despite the policy differences that they may have around the governance of the taxi industry in the Western Cape, they should always find a way in which they could resolve this. This is an election year for the taxi industry countrywide. Every 4 years we go for elections, and in the main that has been the problem in the Western Cape, and we are saying. The only way to register your view during such seasons is the power of an X, and we are saying they are going for elections, so let them go and register that through a conference where they'd be able to outvote the leadership, and if the leadership is re-elected, it simply means the people have spoken.
Briefly, in 10 seconds, your message to commuters as well as drivers out there.
We say to commuters, they can continue to engage with us. We say we also regret the ill treatment that they may find, but working together with us as Santako at National, we'd be able to resolve their problems. So we are open 24/7. They can go on our website and find our contact information and use it fruitfully.
I thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure. Thanks.
That was Thabiso Molelekwa. He is the spokesperson for Santako here in studio.
This distinguished CEO would say the best way to enjoy a brandy is whilst wearing diamond-encrusted lamb's wool socks, accompanied by
the smell of fresh money. Woo!
Really? Sock diamonds? Well, we'd say a brandy, enjoyed with last night's pizza, works just as well. Tops at Spa. Good brandy, good advice, no blingy socks.
Many saying that the former minister is now endorsing Ramaphosa as the next president. Campaign time, Prof?
Yeah.
So early.
Let's at least accept that people have a right to expressing themselves in terms of who they support.
But what is lacking very seriously is that there is no that leadership role that is played by the leadership to say, we haven't opened succession and let us deal with those that are campaigning openly, because we haven't opened it as the leadership of the ANC.
What we need in this country is that we need a ruling party or leading party to be able to engage with issues that affect the people.
Our people campaign openly. It weakens the organization. In fact, it makes the policies of the ANC even more popular.
Stay tuned to Media Monitor and catch on analysts unpacking top stories every Sunday from 9 a.m.
Good morning, welcome back. I'm Kendall Makhamate. We start off our sports bulletin today by bringing the big news coming out of yesterday, where South Africa managed to tell the World Rugby Council in London that the country has got the capacity to host the largest ever Rugby World Cup final, with more than 87,000 fans to be filled at the FNB Stadium. Advancing the idea that a South African Rugby World Cup would be a triple win, the South African delegation definitely put its best foot forward. Presenting the nation's case earlier today, the delegation led by Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa told the World Rugby Council that South Africa ticks every single box of the financial, commercial and logistical requirements of the host and goes way beyond the minimum requirements. South Africa's two Rugby World Cup winning captains, Francois Pienaar and John Smith, also added their weight to the delegation. Deputy President Ramaphosa also told the Council of the power of rugby to unite people, citing the 1995 World Cup as a catalyst to the decades of social cohesion that South Africa has enjoyed. SARU CEO Yuri Roo says South Africa can provide 8 venues purpose-built for rugby that require no upgrading, with the smallest offering a fully seated capacity of more than 43,000. Roo added that this allows the country to make available a total of 2.9 million seats. That's 400,000 more than during the 2015 England tournament. South Africa is bidding against Ireland and France to host the international event. With Paris having recently won the right to host the 2024 Olympic Games, the French delegation, led by their sports minister Laura Flessel, said it welcomed the opportunity to host back-to-back major events. France last hosted the 2007 Rugby World Cup and progressed to the semi-finals, where they lost to England, who in turn were beaten by South Africa in the final. Ireland, on the other hand, who've never played host to an event on as large a scale as the Rugby World Cup, had former captain and Hall of Fame inductee Brian O'Driscoll leading its charge. Ireland has made a politically symbolic bid to play games on both sides of the border between the Irish Republic and Northern Ireland, which is part of the United Kingdom.
Thank you very much and welcome to all of you. We thank you for this opportunity to chat to you and to present South Africa's bid. We, as a nation, have been able to host a number of other events in the past. And where we are now, we stand before the World Rugby Council as an experienced hand at hosting major events. We've hosted the World Rugby Cup in 1995, and that we did when we were just 1 year old in our democratic journey. And thereafter, we were able to host the Africa Cup of Nations 2 years after 1994 democratic breakthrough in our country. And beyond that, we've been able to host the FIFA World Cup in 2010, which we did, and met and even exceeded everybody's expectations from a number of points of view in terms of the infrastructure that the country had put in place to host this major, major global event. And we were able to address all the concerns that the world could have had from a security point of view, accommodation, ease of travel, that we were able to do. We also, beyond that, also hosted the Cricket World Cup, which we did excellently. So we are a nation that is accustomed to hosting major events. This will not be the first time that we host a major event. And all the other events that we've hosted, we did so successfully. And all who participated, various stakeholders, be it visitors to our country, the players themselves, and the local people, all felt that South Africa had executed all those events excellently. And this we were able to do because of the cooperation that we've been able to engender in our country. The government is always fully behind all these major events. Whenever we hold these events, the government either signs a guarantee which is irrevocable, which is backed up by government money, as it is the case in this event that we are bidding for. The government is also able to get all the apparatus, the institutions of government to work well together. We set up what we call an interministerial committee where every discipline of government is focused on making sure that an event of this nature does succeed. The security apparatus are also coordinated through what we call a net joints, which is all the joint security forces work together from the defense force, the police, intelligence, and everyone. They all combine to make sure that an event of this nature does succeed and will limit the concerns that whoever may have, be it from a security point of view, criminality and all that is well advanced. And in this case, as you will hear from my colleagues who deal with these matters, from a financial point of view, our bid is very firm, it's strong, underpinned by a government guarantee, and at the infrastructure level, South Africa is a completely different country from what it was in 1995 when we hosted the World Rugby Cup. The infrastructure rollout has been enormous. And so we believe that if we were ready in 1995, we are more than ready now, because our country has transformed and it has changed for the better. And lastly, from an institutional point of view, political and otherwise, we are a country that is making strides to enhance and entrench stability in our country, and that in itself is where we are making progress on an ongoing basis. So all in all said and done, South Africa is more than ready to host the 2023 World Cup Rugby. Thank you very much.
Well, there you have it, Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa talking about the guarantees that government is putting in to make sure that World Rugby knows that we're serious about this 2023 bid. Now, talking about rugby, the Rugby Championship has been basically decided, with everybody expecting New Zealand to win the tournament again when they face Argentina this coming weekend. The Springboks are fighting to secure second spot with their opponents for this week, Australia, who are also interested in the very same run-up spot, which would definitely make the Saturday's fixture crucial for both teams. Now, the Springboks took some time out ahead of the all-important clash to address some very important issues.
The Springboks will be taking on Australia this Saturday in Bloemfontein, and the team's coach, Alistair Coetzee, addressed a couple of issues. The squad has changed a bit in personnel, and Alistair went to great lengths to explain why a player like Frans Hoogard had been dropped and the inclusion of Frans Olo and Spusi Songosi in the team.
I've looked at since the start of this year is, players showing form, good form. That was one of the big criteria that I've used. And at this point in time, after Super Rugby, Rowan hasn't played any rugby for Contextual Lioness. You know, he's been there for 3 games and he hasn't started any game. So it makes it difficult. And I burnt my fingers last year when we had players coming from France, the inbound series, and we spoke about their conditioning and we spoke about their fitness level. So we're at a crucial stage of our campaign at this point in time. Francois Lowe has come back. Yes, he's joined us, fully fit. He's come through a magnificent pre-season. He's stronger than what he's before. He had 3 good games for Bath, and he's played well. And, you know, he's ready to play Test match rugby.
The Springboks have lost key players due to injury, and the team doctor gave an update on the injuries of these players. And there was good news on Ross Grenier, who was sorely missed against New Zealand in Albany.
Cooney is now 2 weeks after his fracture of his forearm, so he should be out for about another 6 weeks. So that's luckily not a really long-term injury. Warren Whiteley is on track. He's continuing with his rehab, but obviously won't be available yet for the championship, and we're looking more towards the end of the year. And the good news is Ross Grenier has recovered from his viral illness and fully in training.
The humiliating loss against the All Blacks in Albany 2 weeks ago was always going to be a point of concern, and Springbok coach Alistair Coetzee gave his opinions on the substandard performance by his team.
I want to say it up front that the Albany game doesn't define this team. Not at all. It is one game, honestly, where we were definitely not, we were poor. We were poor in terms of execution, and I will never sweep that under the carpet. The players already knew last night that it was substandard, it wasn't good enough.
Many have questioned the inclusion of Flower Andre Pollard in the squad, despite not playing a lot of rugby in the last 2 years. An update on his fitness was also given by the Springbok team doctor.
He's done very, very well. We've put him through a lot of extra paces, so the last few weeks with us he's done double to triple than what everyone else has done just to work on his fitness element. But from his injury-wise, his ankle is, we not even speak about his ankle anymore, so it's not a problem at all. And the same with his other old injuries that he's had. So he's, I think, personally I feel he's in a very, very good space.
Now, basketball player LeBron James has joined the heated conversation centered around US President Donald Trump's verbal battle with the National Football League, or NFL, over players who dropped to one knee during the national anthem. Lashing out at a news conference during the Cleveland Cavaliers Media Day, the highly decorated 3-time NBA champion James had this to say.
I'm not going to let, while I have this platform, to let one individual, no matter the power, no matter the impact that he should have or she should have, ever use sport as a platform to divide us. This is the greatest country in the world. It's the land of the free. But we still have problems just like everybody else. And when we have those problems, we have to figure out a way how we come together and be as great as we can be as the people. Because the people run this country, not one individual, and damn sure not him.
All right, and of course, this is about, we started with Colin Kaepernick last year, a football player actually refusing to stand in attention to when the United States national anthem was being sung before his football matches. Now, it seems like athletes across the United States have taken it up to protest brutality by police against African Americans. Now, to finish off the bulletin and to let us know how spring is washing away the winter is Sihle standing by.
Yes, thank you very much and welcome to the Newsroom weather report. Let's take a look at what's going to happen for later on today. But first, what is happening currently is just we've got this a lot of mid-level cloud, and just to show you what happened earlier on, you see these storms that just develop here and moving towards the Limpopo provinces and Mpumalanga. Last night we did see some very bad skies in the eastern parts of the country. Mainly, it's expected to continue on as we've got a high pressure cell just feeding in a lot of moisture and an upper upper air system that's creating a whole lot of activity in the eastern part of the country. Up to 60% chance of rainfall is expected, especially over KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga provinces. Here along the coastal areas of KZN, you can see a lot of rain is expected, while isolated showers are still expected over the coastal areas here along the south coast and including the eastern coastline. In the north, we're expecting clear skies, especially in places like Namibia, but tomorrow we're expecting some partly cloudy weather coming towards Zimbabwe with isolated showers as this front makes its way outside of the country. Still expecting isolated showers over KwaZulu-Natal, so it's just a continuation of that. Do be careful as those rain might be hazardous. Looking at Angola, there is an intrusion of moisture from the north, as you can see, bring with it some isolated showers. So at that area, that's welcome news. Rains. It's the first time I'm seeing a rainfall in Angola, especially in the northern parts in this summer. Looking at your maximum temperatures this afternoon, 16 is your high if you're in Dar and in Komani, while along the coastal areas, PE is peaking at 18 degrees and still expecting those isolated rains in Durban. But here along the southern coastline, just in between Plettenberg Bay and Port Edward, we are expecting very strong winds reaching about 60 and above, 60 kilometers per hour and above. Looking at the northern parts, we're expecting isolated showers for tomorrow in Zimbabwe, but for today, temperatures are still very hot. We're seeing Bulawayo peaking at 38, but you can expect cooler weather for tomorrow. Even in places like Francistown here in Botswana, still expecting those very hot temperatures. Maun peaking at 38 as well. Looking at the islands, we're expecting a bit of partly cloudy weather in places like Victoria, or clear skies in Antananarivo and Moroni, peaking at 29 for tomorrow. In the islands, coming back towards the DRC, we're just expecting isolated showers. Remember, some moisture is coming into the northern parts of Angola for tomorrow, but today we're still expecting Luanda to peak at 27 with a mostly sunny day. Lusaka peaking at 35. In the north, we're just expecting some isolated showers over the extreme northern parts. We're talking about Tunisia and Libya's coastal areas, while when you look at West Africa, we're expecting up to 80% chance of rainfall here along that corner of West Africa for today. Tomorrow, it's only a 60% chance, but it's still possible, while clear skies are continuing in Niger, Chad, and of course over the northern parts of Nigeria, starting to see some clear conditions, but scattered showers are still expected in between Nigeria and Cameroon. Those areas in that border, we're expecting a very good chance of rainfall, so do be careful if you're at that side. I'll leave it here for now. Thanks for watching Newsroom Weather. Stay tuned to SABC News.
The Pan-African Parliament, as a legislative body, could go a long way in continuing to promote women's rights in all African member states.
Moon will be elected president. A decisive win by him will provide much-needed stability in South Korea.
The Deputy President and the SADC Oversight Committee have been mandated to convene a multi-stakeholder national dialogue before elections.
5 teams are trapped in the relegation mud. These include Bloemfontein Celtic, 12th on the log, followed by Chipa United, Free State Stars and Baroka, who are second from the bottom, as well as Highlands Park, who have won only 4 matches.
We're on point with breaking stories, detailed economy and sport. Tune into Midday Report every Monday to Friday from 12 p.m. After a horrific accident, major questions were asked.
So step one, I asked myself, do I really want to die? And my answer to that was, I'm not sure. And then step 2 was, do I want my parents to bury me? And the answer to that was no.
Learning kept his brain in full action on how the brain works.
When I was in hospital, right, as I was saying, to catch up with my peers, I started to become obsessed with memory techniques and how the brain works and how we retain information.
Touching lives is his continuous mission.
I now work for a non-profit where we deal with access issues regarding kids with disabilities and persons with disability. We're busy working on beach access.
Being wheelchair-bound did not stop fun in his life.
I party in a wheelchair, I laugh in a wheelchair, I smile in a wheelchair.
For all your uplifting stories, catch Bupilong every Friday.
What is environmental health?
In Section 24 of the Constitution, the environmental right has a second part, which is to encourage people to be active citizens and gives us the right to participate in politics and organise and raise awareness so that the environmental right can be guaranteed.
Using coal and wood and paraffin to cook with or to heat their space or to heat water. These are basic fundamentals, and I think if we can address that alone, we will make a huge impact, an environmental impact on the health of our population.
Food that comes into the country, the vigilance at the ports and harbours is being checked at the moment currently by environmental practitioners who are port officers at those ports. They need to be more stringent in terms of control of what comes into the country.
Join Health Talk every Saturday for all your health news.
Today on Rights and Recourse, we will unpack the new traditional court model.
The idea of the bill is not to overregulate, to basically set the principles.
The most important aspect of this bill is that it understands that customary law by its nature is consensual, that I have a right to affiliate, I have a right therefore to opt in, and I have a right to opt out.
The opt-out provision is basically one that you've got to respect the court in the sense of if you've been summoned, you've got to tell the clerk of the court at least that you're not willing to attend.
The challenge that I would like to throw to the Department of Justice, it has to come up with mechanisms of ensuring that people who exercise their right to opt out or to opt in are not in any way victimized.
Hashtag Rights with Dumila Mates on legal issues every Sunday at 2 o'clock Central African Time.
It's 1100 hours Central Africa time. It's the final hour here in the newsroom. Jumbo Africa. I'm Elvis Preslin.
I'm Kendall Makamati.
I will be with you until 12 o'clock today. Today we focus on the Trade Union Federation of Cosatu will embark on that national mass action against corruption and state capture. That's tomorrow, Kendall.
Yeah, absolutely. I expect it to be a massive march nationwide. So I want to find out from you, do you support their planned march against state capture and corruption tomorrow? Are you going to be there? Are you going to be on Twitter?
Well, for those toying, 424 are saying, 73% of you are saying yes, we will support the national strike against state capture and corruption. Only 27% are saying no, Ken.
Very interesting let's see what's being said on social media to back these figures up. Likhasa Batlamolula says, I really don't support Cosatu's national strike because Cosatu ignored the DA, the EFF and the UDM when they were calling.
This one coming from Medelale says they must fight labor brokers fast and they will take them, then I will take them serious.
Go on, Medelale, talking about priorities, and he reckons their priorities need to be there first.
Well, there you have it. Those are some of your comments on that question on the planned strike for tomorrow. But we're also focusing on the accidents. If you went away this weekend, you probably saw some of the traffic authorities on the road because they say they have a 24-hour operation these days to make sure that there's visibility.
But it's sickening how every single time we go on holiday and come back, we just all hear about is people being involved in hectic accidents, tragic, how people just drive recklessly and affect the lives of others.
That's why we're asking you, is visible policing enough to stop the carnage on our roads? Well, let's take a look at what you are telling us.
We've got Tabiso saying it's very unfortunate that people continue being careless in the roads over long weekends and public holidays. I agree with you, Tabiso. It really is us that are being careless and nobody else needs to take responsibility for that.
Nazim Kuragum says it's a good thing that they must not hide under the trees. Arrive alive, SABC News. Yes, get out into the open so we can see you. And of course, we also had a previous comment that says people's mouths must be smelled in order to find out whether they've been driving under the influence of alcohol. But that's your question on the roads. But hosting the 2023 World Cup, Rugby World Cup possible?
Yeah, well, we're trying to see if we can get South Africa to host it again. Nasir Ramaphosa was there, Mark Alexander, John Smith, Francois Pienaar, out in England, putting in our bid for hosting the 2023 Rugby World Cup. What do you think? Do you think that hosting, if we were to get it, would actually unify this nation?
Malibongwe says hosting the Rugby World Cup can only temporarily unify the nation. To unify the nation, we need more than just hosting the World Cup. If you look back at 1995, Malibongwe, that was one of those unification moments in our country. So maybe 2023?
Yes, absolutely. Elvis Yafan also says, yes, it's going to be like 2010 World Cup. We were a united nation. I must say, though, with all of this said and done, South Africa has moved on from 1995 and 2010. It's a different landscape, really, that we find ourselves in, isn't it?
Well, we want to know from you. Let us know what's on your mind on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom as well as on the Facebook page. But right now, let's get down to business. Gauteng Education MEC Panyasa Lesufi is visiting the Klipspruit West Secondary School south of Johannesburg. The school has been rocked by disruptions, with the teacher union SATU withdrawing its teachers. The Finance Minister, Malusi Gigaba, is expected to hold an urgent meeting with the board of the Public Investment Corporation today to discuss a report that the Treasury wants the PIC to bail out struggling state-owned enterprises. And further afield, the United Nations General Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has warned that the rise in the rhetoric between North Korea and the US increases the risk of miscalculations. Well, those are your headlines, but before we get there, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
Elvis, thank you very much. Good morning to you. This is what we've got for you in the sports today.
And this we were able to do because of the cooperation that we've been able to engender in our country.
South Africa's high-power delegation presents the country's bid to host the Rugby World Cup 2023, pushing the notion that rugby will unite the country like it did in 1995.
We're not proud of the last game, but we've put that behind us now. You know, we've sort of buried the Albany game, and we're busy with the turnaround strategy.
Now, with the All Blacks expected to beat Argentina and win the Rugby Championship over the weekend, the Springboks in Australia are hunkering down for a scrap over second place.
I have a lot of respect. And just, they beat one of the best teams playing football right now, like Napoli.
And UEFA Champions League action returns tonight with Manchester City hosting tricky Shakhtar Donetsk as Borussia Dortmund prepare to battle Real Madrid. I should make for some very interesting viewing tonight with all those big teams. Tottenham Hotspur will also be playing as well as Liverpool, but more about that a little later. For now, let's stay with Elvis as he's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this hour. The Gauteng Education MEC Panyasa Lesufi is visiting the Klipspruit West Secondary School south of Johannesburg. The school has been rocked by disruptions, with teacher union SATU withdrawing its teachers. Yesterday, the school governing body was dissolved. SATU has reportedly sent the teachers back to Klipspruit. Lesufi says he's hopeful that learning and teaching will resume.
Officials getting their hands dirty to clean the mess at Klipspruit West Secondary School. Racial tensions flared up again last week after 4 black teachers were prevented from entering the school. Community members have accused the teachers of alleged misconduct. 11 other black teachers walked out in solidarity. Days later, SATU withdrew its members from 30 schools. But after meeting stakeholders, education officials are hopeful that classes can resume.
It's either we have a school or we don't have a school. You can't have it both.
Several SATU members staged a protest at the district office last week, disrupting teaching and learning. 30 other schools in Eldorado Park also shut their doors.
We have appealed to them to allow proper learning and teaching to take place so that we could engage on the issues that are pertinent to the interest of the teachers at the school.
The school has been dogged by racial tension since July, when community members refused to accept the appointment of a black principal. Meanwhile, the Human Rights Commission has now been roped in to investigate allegations of racism at the school. Mangwaba Mchunu, SABC News, Klipspruit West.
in Soweto.
Now, Finance Minister Malusi Gigaba is expected to hold an urgent meeting with the board of the Public Investment Corporation, the PIC, today to discuss reports that the Treasury wants the PIC to bail out struggling state-owned enterprises or SOEs. Gigaba yesterday rejected all such reports as untrue, malicious and unconstructive. The reports claim that Treasury is putting pressure on the PIC, which manages more than 2 trillion rand in state pension funds, to bail out various SOEs, especially SAA. ANC presidential hopeful Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma says there is no clause in the ANC constitution that says that certain positions should be preserved for deputies. Now, this follows reports made by the ANC Secretary General Gwede Mantashe. He allegedly said that the ANC would be in crisis if the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, didn't succeed the President Jacob Zuma as the party president. Dlamini Zuma was speaking at a Cadus forum at Impangeni in northern KwaZulu-Natal.
Mandashe seems to have touched a raw nerve. His recent Twitter comments on the leadership battle have led to him being berated by his party. Some leaders have accused him of being factional.
You cannot have unobhala we mass democratic movement. Even umbono one-sided where our members are nembono ehlukahlukene. And then so that we understand the ANC. In leadership, the ANC must ensure ukuthi ivulelekile ukulalela yonke imbono.
Dr. Dlamini Zuma also weighed in on the issue.
The Constitution guides us very clearly, and we mustn't be confused. It tells us which positions are available for election. Even if you want the incumbent, they still should be elected.
Dr. Dlamini Zuma urged members to refrain from personal attacks that could hurt relations in future. Ayanda Mhlongo, SABC News, Impangeni.
Political analyst Professor Lasiba Tefu says that factionalism is at the heart of the tug-of-war within the ANC in the run-up to its December elective conference about whether Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa should succeed the President Jacob Zuma.
In the minutes of 1949 in Morogoro, it stated that it is preferable, is prudent and desirable that the deputy should be the next in line. Granted, they have been practicing that over the years without any contradiction until somebody tried to fault the process. And the victim supposedly was Jacob Zuma. Men and women within the organization stood up and said, we shall uphold, maintain, retain, and honor the tradition of the ANC. And Jacob Zuma shall be the next in line. Everything was done. Some threatened to kill on his behalf. Some threatened to unleash the tsunami, all because they thought the ANC constitution was being violated, the tradition, custom, and practice was being violated. The next in line should be the deputy. Can it be Jacob Zuma? Can it be those who were around in 2007 in Polokwane? I heard Madam Nkosazana Zuma say, it is not policy, it's not tradition. How unfortunate. Perhaps all the more reason people think if you were to move into the State House, South Africa will be in for more of the same.
Meanwhile, ANC presidential hopeful and Treasurer General Dr. Zweli Mkhize says that the ANC branches shouldn't have leaders imposed on them before the elective conference. Mkhize, who was addressing the ANC members in the ANC's biggest region, eThekwini in Durban, says that branches should also refrain from electing leaders that have a history of dividing the party. Dr. Mkhize has called for unity ahead of the party's December conference. He pleaded with branches to distance themselves from divisive leaders because they will further divide the party. He lambasted gatekeeping, branch manipulation and the imposition of leaders within the African National Congress. He says ANC branches are the last hope for the party to survive. Sanko in KwaZulu-Natal says most of its members in the province are endorsing Mkhize to unite the party.
They are ready to unite the African National. A few comrades get called on the side
And when they sit there, then they decide amongst themselves who's going to be the chairman, who's going to be the secretary. And then so and so and so and so must also be in the list. Sometimes someone from a higher structure comes with the list and says, "Hi, Maqabana, ubuholi buthi nanti abantu abazongihola." We have to get rid of those kinds of things.
Now, SACP and Cosatu have endorsed Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa as their preferred candidate for the ANC's top job. This against the ANC chairperson David Mabuza's calls for unity. And the Steve Tshwete ANC sub-region also announced Ramaphosa as their preferred candidate to succeed the President Jacob Zuma. They held a memorial lecture in honor of the former ANC President Oliver Reginald Tambo in Middelburg.
Taking a bold stand, the O.R. Tambo Memorial Lecture presented an opportunity for the alliance partners to announce their preferred candidate. They urged the ANC not to abandon its traditions.
Since 1952, we saw the deputy president of the ANC, who was Oliver Tambo, who became a deputy of Lituli and eventually became a president. Mandela, deputy to Tambo, also became a president. Thabo Mbeki was also deputy to Mandela, became a president, as well as Jacob Zuma, who became a president in Polokwane, 2007.
A unity that says Jacob Zuma must be allowed to appoint his successor. And in doing so, he looks here in the family and said, "Nah, successor I am."
The Steve Tshwete ANC sub-region also contradicted the party chairperson David Mabuza in his calls for unity.
I've agreed that Cyril Ramaphosa then should be the one that leads then the ANC in December.
ANC NEC member Joe Phahla conceded that the governing party is at its most challenging time.
ANC has got difficulties. We are not in the best of state, but not all is lost. We have opportunity to can correct our wrongs. And one of the major opportunities is the fact that we're having the conference.
SACP's fierce critic of David Mabuza, Bonakele Majuba, was absent from the event. Majuba was recently sworn in as an MPL at the Mpumalanga legislature per the invitation of Mabuza. And his swearing in was a demonstration of unity of the alliance in the province. Sibongile Mkanipolweni, SABC News, Middelburg in Mpumalanga.
The Federation Union Cosatu will embark on a national mass action against corruption and state capture tomorrow. Now, Cosatu's provincial secretary in the Western Cape, Tony Ehrenreich, says that corruption at local, provincial as well as national government must come to an end. The mass action is also aimed at PRASA. Ehrenreich says that public transport is a disaster, especially for the poor. He says the city of Cape Town also has not prioritized its mini of My City bus services, where it is needed most.
If we don't address this corruption and state capture, if we don't address the problems around Cape President Zuma, then this country is going to get worse, the economy is going to get worse, and the unemployment levels are going to increase, and the levels of poverty in our community is going to get worse. We're already seeing a complete breakdown in law and order in many of our communities. If you look at Khayelitsha or Hanover Park, the gangsters are taking over. Drugs is an everyday occurrence, and the children's futures are being stolen away from them because we don't have decisive political leadership.
Now, Cosatu will embark on that massive strike action tomorrow. Let's go there live to the media briefing right now.
Their union affiliation to draw their labor and join the strikes tomorrow. This strike is about sending a message to both government and private sectors, that is workers and citizens who are tired of corruption, who are standing up tomorrow against the kinds of corruption that is eroding our gains and also undermining our democracy. The recent poverty and unemployment statistics are shameful and represent a crisis of leadership in the country. South Africa is currently struggling with the real unemployment rate of 38%, with a close to 10 million people struggling to get jobs and 17 million people on welfare. The recent data by Statistics South Africa report shows that out of the population of 56 million, around 13.8 million people are now living below the food poverty or poverty line of 17 rand 38 cents per person per day. It also shows that more than 30 million people out of the 56 millions are by and large poor. According to the Minister of Economic Development, corruption costs the South African gross domestic product at least 27 billion rand annually, as well as the loss of 76,000 jobs that will otherwise have been created. The 2015 to 2016 Auditor General's report shows the regular expenditure has increased by nearly 40% since the 2013 to 14 to 46.36 billion. The increase from the previous year was nearly about 80%. It also shows that the fruitless and wasteful expenditure in the year 2015-2016 was 14% higher than the 2013-14 year at 1.37 billion, and was again incurred by the increased number of those audited. The Auditor General's report also shows 1,648 instances of suppliers submitting false declaration of interest as part of the procurement processes that was reported, but only 47% of the municipality did not investigate any of the case reported to them. The report also showed that 2015 capture state-owned The report also shows that 2015 reported instances of the employees not declaring interest had even lower investigation rate, with 64% of the municipality not investigating any of the cases. In 2015-16, poor and non-complaint consequence management practices were found to be at 61% of the municipality, an increase from 53% in the previous year. Municipalities with poor consequence management practices are often prone to corruption or fraud as a result of municipality officials not being held accountable. The report also shows that in municipalities, unauthorized expenditure remain almost at the same level as the previous year at almost 13 billion rand. The biggest corruption case in the private sector was revealed in the report by the UN Conference on Trade and Development last year that showed that South African mining companies under-invoiced the taxman to a tune of about 1 trillion rand between 2000 and 2014. This is made worse by the fact that JSE-listed companies are continuing with their investment strike. They are now sitting with more than 700 billion rand in cash deposit in South African banks. This is happening while South Africa is losing roughly about 147 billion from the money that is illegally taken out of the country per year. This is the money that will allow South African to accommodate all South African students at the university level for free. We cannot sit back and do nothing when we see a repeat and continuation of what has reversed the freedom of many African countries after independence. Our martyrs did not sacrifice their lives so that greed and corruption can replace our freedom. As if this was not enough, we have been hit by the latest scandal involving disgrace auditing and consultancy firm KPMG. This scandal is a stark reminder of the collusion between the private and public sector in swindling South Africa and destroying our economics and jobs. Thousands of jobs at the KPMG are now at stake because of the corrupt and greedy tendencies of those who are at the top. The road that we see in both the public and private sector is being hidden, abated and endorsed by firms like KPMG. This shows that we have become a kleptocracy and that there are no angels in both the public and the private sector. Cosatu has noted with grave concern the report that the Gupta network is trying to infiltrate and ultimately hijack the PIC so that they can lay their grubby fingers on the workers' retirement savings. We're also concerned to learn that the Minister of Finance, Gigaba, is going ahead with his attempt to use the workers' retirement saving to bail out the captured state-owned enterprises or entities. We've already written to the Minister, Malusi Gigaba, asking for an urgent bilateral meeting to discuss the issue that have emerged recently, including the reported attempts by the Gupta network to capture the PIC. When the minister made his presentation to the CEC, the meeting rejected his plan and made it very clear that it opposed any attempt to invest workers' savings to the captured. We want to see a judicial commission of inquiry investigating the looting of the state-owned enterprises, and we also want to see people prosecuted and sent to jail before we can even discuss the possibility of workers' money invested in these state companies. Will not allow the PIC to be looted the same way that ESCOM and other state-owned enterprises have been looted. Will not allow our members' retirement savings to be handed over to Ms. Tutumieni's airline, the South African Airways. Ms. Mieni has been nothing but a one-woman tornado that has created havoc and chaos wherever she has been deployed. Currently, she is working with Minister Nomvula Mgonyane to collapse Umgeni Waters by tearing the rule book to shreds and running the entity like a spaza shop. She cannot be entrusted with workers' retirement saving. Rigorous conditions should be put in place before any entity is granted funding from the PIC. Few months ago, the fates of the 17 million beneficiaries of social grant were facing a bleak future because of corruption and bureaucratic bundling by SASSA and the Department of Social Development. Cosatu finds it shocking to learn that Minister of Social Development, Batabil Dlamini, has asked the parliamentary speaker to rein in what she calls onerous requests by a committee of overseeing the state welfare agent's effort to end and contract with Net1 UPS Technologies to distribute the payment. This misplaced concept is deeply shocking considering that it took the intervention by the Constitutional Court to resolve the bundling by SASSA and the department. We call on the people's representative in Parliament to do their job, and the Parliament Standing Committee on Public Account and the Portfolio Committee should continue to demand accountability and transparency from SASSA. All those entrusted with taxpayers' money should account of step aside because they are not doing anyone any favor. We cannot fight corruption and state capture if we do not acknowledge that the South African capital system itself is a deeply corrupted system. The current economic system, as a symbol by the NDP, reproduce rather than address our triple crisis of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. The government's neoliberal policies have weakened the state and allowed the private sector to be in charge of policy formulation. The Treasury continues with its restrictive fiscal policy, which is obsessively focused on achieving budget deficit targets, and the Reserve Bank continues to pursue its inflation target that's excessively restricting the economy on a low growth path. The current economic trends have unleashed very harsh conditions, especially of the working class and the poor, on top of the already severe triple crisis of unemployment, poverty, and inequality. We've already lost 120,000 jobs this year in 2017. And according to State SA, of the 546,000 people who have just joined the ranks of the unemployed, approximately 58% were young people aged between 15 and 34. This means that in terms of the expanded definition, we actually face a crisis of 70% youth unemployment. South Africa is not a poor country, but its citizens are poor because poor governance and as a result of state capture and corruption. The country's fifth administration, as led by the ANC President Zuma, has and continued to preside over economic contradiction and job losses. Corruption has become endemic under this administration. The revelation by the Public Protector report on state capture that show that this current South African administration has been captured and that there is a network of predator elite that is engaged in looting of state resources. This call for all of us as workers and citizens to stand up and push back against this rot. This strike is about mobilizing against the predatory elite who are pushing for an appointment of Judicial Commission of Inquiry that will help unearth the extent of this rot and help us to ultimately dismantle this network. There must be a process to identify all those involved in the state capture, and they all need to be blacklisted. The asset forfeiture unit must seize the asset of those who are found guilty. We demand that the private and public sector institution must refuse to deal with predatory elite and in particular cancel all commercial dealings with the implicated individuals. The money that will be recovered should be redirected to implement projects addressing the plight of workers, the working class, and the poor. Lastly, we warn all those employers who will try to intimidate workers for participating in tomorrow's strike, especially the vulnerable workers. We urge all workers to report the incident of intimidation and coercion to the nearest Cosatu offices. This is a legally protected strike, and all workers are encouraged to join the marches all across the country. The time to reclaim the electoral mandate that we gave to the ANC is now. There is no Messiah who will come and rescue us from the state capture and the cancer of corruption, but it is our collective effort that will put a stop to this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Novan. As I've already indicated, we do hope that we are not going to have a very long media briefing, so we are going to be taking questions. You raise your hand, we acknowledge you, you tell us where you come from and you ask the question. So I'll take the question.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. My name is Stephen. I'm from GateNet for Slack TV. My question, first question rather, is to Mr. Njani. I just wanted to find out, with this march tomorrow, are you also in a way saying to President Zuma that it is time for you to step down now? And the second question would be directed to Mr. Sodi Mabaida. Just your reaction to Makosi Khoza's announcement last week, you know, her decision of resigning from the ANC. Thank you.
Okay. We will interpret this as a message that the statement was very clear. Like I said, we are hoping that we're only going to have one round. Okay.
Thank you so much. It's Golden Little, Maiden Guardian newspaper. Could you please identify what the petty sectarian differences are that you referred to in the beginning of your statement, which you're asking workers to put aside? Secondly, you're saying that the chairperson of the SAA board, Mr. Dumieni, is now working with the Minister of Water Affairs, to collapse the Mgeni Water Board. Is this march a march against Mr. Dumieni and SAA and the Minister Nomvula Mokonyane? And which plans did the Central Executive Committee of Cosatu that were presented by Mr. Malusi Gaba reject? And finally, is the President Jacob Zuma part of the predatory elite which you have referred to in the statement? Thank you.
Good, sir.
Seems to be not working.
Okay, thank you. My name is Tsepo Ikane from the SABC. On political issues, there's been reports about developments with regard to the ANC conference around what has been termed as moves to have unity, kind of a consensus leadership ahead of the December conference. Does Cosatu leadership has any position with regard to what has been happening with regard to the mediation or efforts led by Didi Mabuza to actually engage with other alliance partners, including members of the ANC themselves, to have what they term as consensus leadership, given the fact that we know that Cosatu has endorsed Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa to take over from President Jacob Zuma? Thank you.
Hi, it's Samuel Abraham from the Huffington Post. Just want to find out what exactly do you mean by this, it's time to reclaim the electoral mandate that we get to the ANC. How will you reclaim this electoral mandate, and what exactly do you mean by this? Thank you.
Okay, over to you, leadership.
No, can I start? Start.
Oh, okay. Silence.
Corner uthinte i-cable somewhere is no more working. There might be a cable that the thing has come out of the connection and have corrupted the whole system. So
You are close to the mic. This one doesn't again.
No, let us proceed.
Okay.
In the meantime.
Okay. There are a number of questions which we'll try to respond to them briefly because they are not part of what we're trying to do today. The issues of consensus leadership of the ANC, we Cosatu have a strong view that if we are talking about that consensus, it should be a consensus based on the traditions that we're talking about. It should be around the deputy president as the leader of that particular consensus. On the issues that we marching against few individual people that we have been mentioning in dealing with those issues, we're marching against the state capture and corruption. And in the process, there will be many people whom will associate with that kind of corruption. And of course, in doing so, we've indicated in our statement that ordinarily, if the local government and the ministers are accused of not doing the proper thing, ordinarily we'll be reporting them to the president. We'll say to President Zuma, remove Minister A, B, and C. But the president has not been able to do that. So in essence, we've lost confidence to the president for him to be able to correct those that reported to him. As such, it goes back to our statement that we think the president is the right time that he must go. So this march is all inclusive. It's about when we are referring to reclaiming the electoral mandate of the ANC, the electoral mandate of the ANC is people first. It's people development, and for the ANC to be able to do that one, it must be able to deal with the state capture and corruption. Otherwise, it will not be in a position to do anything in terms of that mandate. And we said we have to help the ANC to do that work. And by standing up and indicating that corruption is not only rejected by workers, but is rejected by many South Africans. So others can take now.
All right. Thank you very much. Can I just take, there's one question that was asked by Gavin on the, what are those sectorial, petty sectorial? We understand and appreciate that workers are coming from different sectors of the economy. You would have ones that are from the public sector, and within the public sector, they are in different workplaces, which the interest may not be the same, and what they are demanding in terms of sectorial issues are not the same. And those are the differences that we acknowledge, that a worker that is employed in a security company and a worker that is employed in a public service by government may not have the same issues that they would be raising. For an example, you are dealing with issues of workers that are earning below 17 rands, 20 rands, which you may find for those that are employed in government, under government employment. So if you are to take a march at times that deals with collective bargaining, mainly focusing on the public sector, you would find a private sector workers organized under a private sector following or participating in that march, because those are sectoral issues that are confronting them at that time. So we're saying let workers tomorrow rise above those sectoral differences and unite on this issue that does not choose a sector that a worker belongs to, but it erodes the fiber of South Africa, and those that are at the receiving end of corruption and state capture, negatively so, are workers of this country, irrespective of a sector that you are working in, irrespective of a trade union that you belong to, irrespective of a federation that your union is affiliated to. So hence, this is a call to all workers of this country, including civil society, because if this corruption and state capture is so adverse towards the workers of this country, how much more to those that are not working? How much more to those that are looking for employment? Because the excuse that the private sector makes for them not to come and invest in our country, it is corruption. That some, by some of the private sector, they are also part of corruption, because we're saying where there is a corrupter, there is a corruptee, but it is an excuse that they are making for them to disinvest in our country, which puts the ones that are still looking for employment further and deeper into poverty. So our call for workers to put aside sectoral differences is as a result of that. Can I just also say, before Comrade Soli come in, Mapaila, just to add on what the General Secretary of Cosatu have said on the issue of the ANC conference, the move to unify. EsiXhoseni siye sithi abantu bazingela bephethe. You can't be calling for unity and say, let us find a way of unifying, when you are going to raise your hand to be part of the leadership that is going to be a unifier. So you can't then be saying, let us collapse, if possible, the Nkosazana Zuma campaign, the Cyril Ramaphosa campaign, and find a neutral campaign. And in the neutral campaign, you are finding yourself in it. You are pronouncing that you are ready. It can't be you. A unifier puts his interest or her interest aside and say, in the interest of the organization, this is the type of leadership that we think is going to unify. And yourself as a unifier, you don't proclaim your interest in the process. You step aside. So strangely is that those that are calling for a unity and wanting to be unifiers, they are raising their hands in the process. So could that mean, should we read that if that process of unifying does not have your name, therefore that unity is no more? Are you going back to where you were? It's strange. Hence we are saying as a federation, the 1949 conference of the ANC resolution, or a tradition that was adopted that a deputy president succeeds the president, must be a point of unity, a point of rallying unity in the movement. If they are to agree to start on that, and I think we will be moving at least in a correct path of unity. But
yeah, maybe let me start there from where Comrade Zingiswa, Deputy President of Cosatu, left. It's important that when we talk, we all embrace unity of our movement, unity on principles and policies, unity of purpose, in particular responding to the current challenges facing our movement. We're in a very difficult situation as a movement, and therefore our revolution is stagnating as a consequence of these difficulties that we are facing, and we need leadership across the movement. I want to endorse this framework that unity should not be self-serving, as it seems is the way it is couched. Self-interest groups opportunistically seizing the moment in the name of unity to want to steal the movement. And I think that it's an issue that will require further discussion. So we support unity, but not self-serving unity, opportunistic unity that will not serve the interests of our people. We want the movement to be saved. And that's why I endorse on behalf of the party, the framework that Comrade Zingiswa is raising. But let me just also respond to some of the questions raised. The first one relates to the point by Stephen. First, it's marches. It's not march, one march. It's marches across the country. Maybe, Caesar, it's important that we distribute the activity list to the media while they're still here. It's marches across the country, and we're participating in all of these marches as the SACP in support of this Cosatu action. And we also want to say, we see this march as different from many other marches as the SACP. It's not just another march where we'll just march tomorrow and that's it. We see this march as signifying an important moment where now organized labor, at the core of which is Cosatu, have come out much more clearly to express its disdain and disgust with those who are stealing from our state and national resources for themselves and their families at the expense of the majority of our people. And therefore, this signifies a rolling action until we defeat the elite. It is in this case that, for instance, the SACP, we have, before I came here, which was part of my 15-minute delay or so, we're writing to our deployees in government, particularly at the national level, those who are ministers and others, that tomorrow the SACP is deploying them to work at the marches. We don't want the minister to go to cabinet tomorrow. They must apologize to go to cabinet tomorrow. We have given that instruction from the SACP headquarters. So all our members, even those in provinces, MECs, if you are working tomorrow, give apology to government. You'll see them. There's enough time tomorrow we are saving our revolution, we are participating in these marches, joining organized labor and all the people of South Africa to defend our national sovereignty, to defend our state, to fight against corruption and state capture that is now being stolen. I see one question indicates that, do we think President Zuma is part of the elite? Okay. Actually, is the elite predator. The elites are those close to him, the Guptas, and others inside the movement who have accepted this particular agenda. So we are dealing with a very serious matter. That is why post this march, things will not be the same in this country. And we don't want them to be the same as a consequence of this particular action. And because the SACP joins this action quite clearly and fully aware about the significance of this march. And we want to thank Cosatu for taking the initiative to bring its might where it is most required to save the workers of this country and their interests. With regard to the question that is raised about Comrade Makosi Khosa, I must say that I think she must be proud. She did all she could. I personally and fully understand her stance. I guess so with many of our comrades. But I think we must indicate that we truly sympathize with her. At the same time, it's important to make a call that we need all our fighters inside the movement today. Understanding her position, I mean, you'll know her children were severely under threat. Her own life was under threat. She could go so far. But it's important to make the call that at least our comrades must not leave the ship now. It's a critical moment. Between now and December, the ANC has proven its inability to self-correct. There's a court case. After a court case, comrades continue to convene meetings as if there's no court case. It's quite clear this movement is unable to save itself. So we need all comrades to remain inside the ship, not to come out and jump into the sea at this critical point. So we will sympathize with Comrade Makosi, but we want comrades who are in a similar situation like her to remain inside the ship and to fight right up to the last end, and particularly to save the coming conference of the African National Congress. There were issues that were raised around, for instance, in the statement reclaiming the electoral mandate. One of the core mandates, of course, is accountability of government. And we have given enough reasons in the statement indicating the level of rot in government and our engagement through alliance processes jointly with Cosatu. And we're not getting good answers, including on the president himself, who is at the center of this corruption that is taking place in government, because he has been the buffer, the main protector, the main distributor, the main person who make it possible. And there's enough evidence to this case in this regard. And therefore, it is important that we need accountable government, democratic government. You cannot have a parallel state and still continue to call yourself democracy. So it is in this case that what we're talking about, the ANC has to understand its own electoral mandate, which we in the alliance completely participated, including in crafting our own manifestos. And we feel that those manifestos are being betrayed in the manner that they have been implemented with the level of corruption that is taking place in government. So it is in this regard that this statement is important. And we also want to see ANC members in their big numbers tomorrow joining the marches across the country. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade GGS. I'm tempted to close. Let me see if is there anyone who's violently protesting against that? And there's no one. Okay.
Can we just get information as to where the marches will start from and end, please, tomorrow?
No, we'll give you that information. No, I think we have reached the end of this media briefing. We really appreciate your presence. Those who had requested one-on-one interviews, the leadership is available to conduct them now. Thank you again.
No, it's given the matches season.
No.
Yes,
we
Oh, yeah, also printing. Yeah, sorry.
we have 13 matches in the country. In other provinces, we have 2. For example, in Mpumalanga, we have 2 matches, in Nelspruit and Middelburg. And then you have 1 big match in the KZN in Durban. You have the match in Polokwane. You have a match in Gauteng, which is going to go to the Premier's office. It will also go to the Chamber of Mine and the banks. You have a match in Northwest, where it will go to ESCOM. It will also go to and at the legislature. In Mafikeng, you have a match in Kimberley, where it will also go to ESCOM, including to the Premier's office in Kimberley. You have a match in Free State, where it will also go to the Premier's offices. So in all these provinces, Comrade, we are going to have 13 matches, and we expect, as Comrade Soli Mapaila says, that members of the ANC have been mobilized. We've gone through the entire 9 provinces where we mobilized, including the civil society, members of the community, to support us in relation to those matches. And memorandums are handing over to the premiers. In the other provinces where we have evidence in relation to corruption, the provinces are going to go to the police station and open criminal cases. For example, in the Northwest, there's a case around the so-called a company called it is led by the company that is leading the Telenzi ambulance. They've got clear corruption that Telenzi is running ambulances almost in all the provinces. So they want to know who owns those Telenzi ambulances. Because they've got evidence. They want to go to the police station or to the Hawks to open criminal case against those individuals. So we expect you to follow up with those matches and take what Cosatu will be doing jointly with the Communist Party. Thank you very much.
This was the earlier version before the changes.
Oh, okay.
Of what ANC participated